crew.
No more complaining about how come we're seeing all them reruns. Well, now you won't have that to complain about.
Yeah, for a couple months anyways, 3 months anyways.
An exciting season that it was. We're going to kind of pick apart the good, the bad, and the ugly. There was a lot of ugly as well.
Was there?
But there was a lot of good. A lot of good.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the positive.
And you're thinking, what are we going to be fishing for up there? And Great Slave Lake is obviously Lake Trout City, and there's this, that, the other. But there are walleye up there, and there's some big walleye up there.
We'll talk about that too in a minute.
There's grayling up there. There are Inconnu up there. There are other fish species, but their main species are these giant northern pike. And then these pike, we were talking about muskies earlier, and muskies being bigger and all that. These pike are muskie size pike.
And there it was. It was a little tiny opening in the wall that was just the size of our boat, and it had a trickle of water snaking its way through it with jaggedy ass boulders sticking out of it. Mm-hmm. I said, hell yeah, we can do this. We've gone through worse than that. Come on.
We get out there, Ange hooks into a stud of a walleye on a little 8-pound test drop shot rig, so you know it's not
windswept, by the
way.
Very
delicate situation. And I go, where's the net? And he goes, what do you mean, where's the net? Where the hell is the net?
This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio is brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the new year. I guess Happy New Year's, a belated Happy New Year's for those of you who we haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah.
We're excited. This is we're about to embark on the 39th season.
Give me a hell yeah!
Which is actually the 40th season of broadcast for the Fishing Canada show.
I'm already confused.
I know, me too.
We're airing 39 and shooting 40.
Exactly.
There we go.
Exactly.
Right,
and we're going to talk about the 39th, which starts this week on all of the Fishing Canada television networks.
Come on now.
Nobody's seen this stuff. Nobody. This is it, right? This is brand new.
Brand spanking new.
Hello, there they are. There's the crew.
No more complaining about how come we're seeing all them reruns. Well, now you won't have that to complain about.
Yeah, for a couple months anyways, 3 months anyways.
An exciting season that it was. We're going to kind of pick apart the good, the bad, and the ugly. There was a lot of ugly as well.
Was there?
But there was a lot of good. Lot of good.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the positive, shall we?
That's right. We're optimistic, Angelo.
That's correct. Before we do any of that, let's just remind folks this wonderful stuff that we're wearing here is all available on fishingcanada.com.
Come on now.
Thank you to all of you who bought the new garb this past year. We're dying to see it out on the streets and
it would be cool, wouldn't it?
The different sports shows and all of that.
We've given away so many hats in the past.
Oh.
Like when that was our shtick. We have a special giveaway hat, and we still do a little bit of it now. But you see the odd one every now and then. You'll see somebody at the Leafs game or something have a hat on like that or whatever.
It's so cool to see.
It's so neat to see it. It's like yes,
so cool. That's us. I know that. While you're there on fishingcanada.com and or the store purchasing all of this wonderful stuff. Take the poll and let us know what you want to see. For example, here's something I'd like to throw out. We have now 6 species of fish. Maybe you have a species that is not there that you would like us to highlight. For example, I don't know whether you know it or not, but I have the beautiful rainbow trout, a.k.a. steelhead.
The gringo trout.
But maybe somebody is a brown trout aficionado.
Oh,
we don't have
Come
that.
on now.
Right?
Tiger trout. I know there's not many of them, but it's such a beautiful fish.
We can do this.
Tiger muskie.
Tiger muskie is another one. We do have regular muskie. Musculanjo is there.
Esox mascanonge.
Yeah, baby.
Anyways,
take the poll while you're there, please.
Yeah.
It helps us determine what you want as opposed to what we want. Although at the end of the day,
Well, we're picking the
what
easy
we
stuff,
want is
right?
important too. Right?
Let's face it, what we want goes.
That's it. Listener feedback, Mr. Bowman.
Yeah, from Dave Fleming via YouTube. In response to episode 148 with Joe Cermelli, I do not give one crap what he or anyone says. I will never eat a snakehead or a gar ever. What in the actual...
Bleep, 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 bleep.
Whoop, whoop.
Come on now.
So
interesting.
Dave's very adamant about that answer,
It's
right?
an interesting take
Yeah.
on that, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what?
And we get so used to looking at certain animals as food and others as not food.
Right.
That we have a hard time breaking through those
It's
things.
pretty funny. I love Dave's attitude.
Before we answer that or deal with that one, I remember the years that you and I did outdoor journal television where we were traveling all over the world to those exotic and crazy places.
Yes.
We ate stuff.
We ate some pretty weird shit, didn't
Oh, my God.
we? Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, it's food.
We tried, yeah.
To some people, it might be trash, but to others, it's food.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what part of the world you're in. And I think that world is shrinking tremendously. What I mean by that is you go to the grocery store today, and there's stuff up there that I didn't see 5 years ago, never mind 10
What do
or
you
20
mean?
years
Like what?
ago.
Do you know
Just
anything in
different types
particular?
of foods. You can see that we're starting to absorb protein, especially from different parts of the world, and it's great. I like trying some new stuff.
Yes. I mean, some people, like Dave, he doesn't, obviously, he'd rather have a steak than,
Well-
or not a steak, but let's say walleye than any of
Right,
those, you know
right.
what I mean, like that. And,
And
justifiably so.
Here's the way I look at that, is that if you can, especially fish, if you've got two freshwater species of fish that coexist in a body of water that have, for the most part, the same diet as each other, whether they're carnivorous or whether they're herbivores, but they're eating the same stuff, why would one sort of have that, ew, don't eat that, and the other one, and I'll go back to things like even mud, mudcat. I know, Dean, you love mudcat. Burbot.
Oh,
Burbot.
yeah.
Burbot's different than mudcat. It's a lot different.
But
a lot of people love mudcat.
Mudcat or
Mud
catfish.
pout, or
I
whatever
grew
you call
up.
them.
I grew up.
Burbot, yeah.
I grew
Bullheads,
up eating
bullheads, that's what they call them.
catfish.
Yeah.
Right. They're wonderful. They're absolutely
I
wonderful.
haven't eaten much of them. I haven't given it an honest try. I have to give it a...
Because you look at it and say, "Oh my God, I can't eat
just
that."
never... I mean, if I catch them... If I went and caught them, we used to do it in the Napanee River, but I don't remember the taste of them. I can't remember, or we just threw them back. I can't remember what we did.
They were
But I know.
wonderful.
But in the spring, the water was really cold, so I'm sure the meat was perfect.
They were wonderful.
You know what? It's probably Dave's probably just looking at that fish and saying, "Oh my God, that's a gross looking fish. That's why I don't want to eat it." I'm assuming, right? That's probably what he's doing. And, like a gar. It's not the prettiest fish anywhere in the exterior. So
Well, I got bad news for you because have you seen tilapia? I mean, aside from eating it on when it's on your plate, have you seen that fish?
Yeah,
before?
I've seen it, yeah.
Okay, it's not the prettiest critter
it's
in
like
the
a
world.
big
I'll
old
tell you that.
panfish or- yeah.
Fish like some of the exotic species that we consume are the ugliest looking things you could ever set your eyes on.
Even
But-
pike, though, like they kind of smell. and
Well,
they're
pike.
Pike is
they're
pike
pretty
is a good
nasty fish.
example of how slimy they are, how stinky they are, how
Yeah.
you get pissed off with them when they cut your line all the time, and yeah.
What's the difference between pike and gar pike?
It's good. Well, is gar a pike though?
No, about what we call gar pike.
Right.
What's the difference when you think about it? They're
Until you try it,
predatory
yeah.
fish. They'll eat anything in sight. They're nasty. They're all those same things. But yet one we consume and say, "Oh my God, this is the best tasting fish I've ever had." Right? Mm-hmm. You got to try it. You
interesting.
got to have an open mind. In my opinion, you have to have an open mind. If you're a fisherman, an angler. And you consume fish, I think you have to have an open mind. At least try something once.
Dave doesn't give a crap what you say.
I know. Sorry, Dave. Anyways,
I love
that's
it.
Dave
Thanks,
Fleming
Dave.
via
That's a good one.
YouTube, which is
That's a
kinda
great
nice.
question.
I mentioned
Very
eating
comment.
carp. Well, there's a carp that we don't want to eat. This is Conservation Corner.
Hell yeah, eat them up.
Come
Yeah,
on
well,
now.
that's true.
Let's get rid of them.
Brought to you by the Invasive Species Centre, and we're going to talk just quickly. It's not just because it's 2025 is no different. We still have the Asian carp invasion upon us, so we need to make sure that we stay vigilant on that creature.
He says, did you know that grass carp have the potential to negatively, and I'll add something here, negative impact to popular sport fishes, northern pike, walleye, smallmouth bass, yellow perch, and snakehead, and a fish that, snakehead's an invasive rate. Down, here it is. Down there it is too in the States, right?
Yeah. Where would one find snakeheads?
I know they get them in Florida. I do know that. I don't know
I
where
think
we
they're
get 'em.
all the way up now, though. Like Joe's getting them in New Jersey. Like I think they're pretty much right at the border for us.
So there's another one that's knocking at the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they would,
Wow.
yeah. I was going to say, but I mean, if they're not established, but gar are established, fish that we have established. And
Well, we don't know. Is gar an invasive species?
No, they're native.
They're native
Yeah.
as hell, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
200 million years ago or some silly thing or something.
So, but it looks like it could be an invasive species. But,
Yeah. He does. He wears the mask of an invasive fish, doesn't he?
However, the grass carp, there's no mistaking it. It does not belong here. And so before it has a negative impact on our fishing environment, and more importantly, on the game fish that we know and love and spend time with every weekend or every waking moment that we can out in the water. And I'm talking about both bass species, walleye, perch, pike, muskie, anything that swims in fresh water can be negatively
Rainbow trout.
impacted. Rainbow trout, this
You know what I'm
beautiful
saying.
rainbow trout. Now, I don't know whether rainbow trout, it would, but I don't think it's as dependent on vegetation.
No,
because these animals that we just talked about all require vegetation.
I'll tell you, when you find rainbows in the smaller lakes, you know what I mean, especially out west and stuff like that, they definitely are attracted to the bugs in the vegetation, et cetera, right?
I think I've said it here before, and I'll say it again. I think everything that swims in fresh water at one point or other depends on vegetation for it to perpetuate. And so nothing is exempt from the fact that these grass carp that can consume an enormous amount of this vegetation that is life-giving to all fish in the swim. We need to find out more about them. We need to stay on top of it. We need to educate ourselves. We need to do all of those things to make sure that if and when, probably more when than if, we encounter one out in the wild, we know what to do.
AsianCarp.ca. Check it out.
You can also, on the 28th of January, the end of this month, there is a workshop that the Invasive Species Centre is putting on for grass carp. It's a session that's taking place at the Windsor Sportsman's Club. Sportsman. I always say sportsman's.
I think that's the easiest way to do it. I think you're right. The Sportsman's Show.
Yeah. Sportsman Club in Windsor, Ontario. There'll be all kinds of booths there, and experts will be making presentations on the various invasive species, and in particular the grass carp. They'll have a Q&A, which we participated in one not that far.
We were asking the questions.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
We wanted answers too.
We were asking. But anyways, you can go there, and they will have complimentary food and refreshments, and a chance to win a Yeti backpack cooler.
Give me a hell yeah!
Valued at $400.
That's
Come
right.
on now.
And is this all free, Dean? Do people pay
It's all
for it?
free.
No kidding.
Yeah, open to the public.
What a way to start the new year.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, what a way to start the new year. Get yourself one of those beautiful Yeti backpacks.
You know what's interesting about these things, the one that Dean and I and Ange went to not that long ago, is that even the people like yourselves that are in there to learn and our questions, when you listen to the questions of others, you learn by that. You know what I mean? Like, remember all those commercial fishermen that were asking all these and making all these points, and that we're thinking, wow, we had no idea. And thank God they came in and asked those questions, because it opened up the minds of everybody too. So you learn a lot in these sessions.
If you're in the area, please participate. January 28th. Get the crayons out. Mark that on the calendar, kiddies. January 28th at 6 to 9 p.m. at the Windsor Sportsman Club.
Come on now.
Windsor Sportsman Club. There you go. Brought to you by the Invasive Species Centre. Done. That one is behind us.
Tutto finito.
We mentioned the wonderful garb that we're wearing, so that's taken care of. And we did listener feedback, and we did that.
Moving
my
on.
God, we're just in the news, Mr. Bowman.
We're rocking it, brother.
Officials celebrate the near eradication. This one I was actually rejoicing when I saw it.
I was a little surprised too, but Makes sense.
I know. Of the invasive species called the
Sea lamprey.
sea lamprey. Thank you.
Come on now.
Oh, I got stuck there. I was in the mud.
Well, it's because you had all the invasive. We were talking snakehead, we were talking grass carp, we're talking all these invasives, and you had to backtrack and say, "Whoa, look at the face on that."
I remember.
That
You
is
see how
so
spooky that is?
Ugly.
When I was a kid, way back, when I was a kid, my cousin Rito and I were
Rito.
in the Oshawa Creek. And right below, there's a mill pond there. It's about, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet deep, maybe.
What is a mill pond?
What is a mill pond? It's, okay, so they used to use these mills, and they put them on creeks that they would kind of dam up the upper end of the creek, create a pond. The water would be going through a little gateway, if you will, that actually put the wheel in motion, and that wheel was a grinding mill, and they would grind wheat and stuff.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So in one of those ponds, my cousin got one of them on his arm.
No.
Yeah. First time. Might have been the first time that I ever had a close encounter with one. It wasn't huge. It was
You
about,
guys must have
about
freaked
12
out.
inches. No, we loved that. So keep in mind, as a kid, back then.
But that thing?
Yeah.
I mean, of all things, maybe a bloodsucker, but that's some bitch.
We're so used to leeches.
Look
and
at the
that kind of
teeth
thing.
on that.
I know.
Okay,
I
how'd
know.
you get that off him? How did you guys do that?
It wasn't, if I recall, it wasn't that difficult.
He didn't latch in yet?
No,
He has not?
couple of tugs. And, yeah, but there was blood involved,
Yeah.
for sure. I remember that.
Yeah.
So they've been, sea lamprey have been in our waterways forever, it seems. Certainly, I can attest to the fact that they've been there at least 60 years, if not more. And then they sort of got out of control when the Great Lakes salmon fishery was at its peak. One of the biggest problems that species had, I'm talking the Chinook and the coho, and to some extent the steelhead, although not as much, were these lampreys that were consuming the lifeblood out of these fish. and
Every
killing them.
salmon you caught either had a lamprey on it or had a lamprey sore on it,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they were covered, usually 2 or 3 sores on them.
Here's an interesting
round
number.
marks.
We said earlier on that grass carp can consume 40% of their body weight in vegetation every day. Well, how about a critter that can consume up to 40 pounds of fish? Consume
Wow.
up to 40 pounds of fish in the parasitic phase of its life, and every female sea lamprey will lay about 100,000 eggs, with roughly 75% becoming viable. And they
Wow.
used to.
That's
they used
huge.
to, and Dean, there's a comparison that's made just to bring this whole thing into perspective, how it equates to our consumption of salmon.
Yeah, that we actually, or that the lamprey are actually taking more than we are as people, which is insane to think how many, we always talk about how much of an impact that we have, and there's actually a species out there consuming more than us,
Wow.
which seems pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy, right?
So that's 75% being viable.
Yeah.
That means they are babies and they're going to become adults.
They grow to adulthood.
And that's insanely high.
That's insane. A
like,
walleye will
because-
lay 100,000 eggs and maybe 3 or 2 or 1 might make it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
Or
the odd
muskie.
thing about that is that in most cases, and we'll take the goby as a really good example, they eventually become part of the food chain, right? Eventually, predator fish decide, hey, you know what? That might be pretty tasty. And next thing you know, they're actually a plus on the, the ladder, the food chain ladder. The lamprey never made it there.
So
For
they
some bizarre reason, whether it's
tasted like shit.
well, okay, I got to tell you, we talked
Poor
earlier
fish.
on about consuming fish. So, as an Italian, and my parents being immigrants to this country, anytime you had an opportunity to bring food into the house that you didn't have to pay for was a big plus.
Okay.
And I remember those days. One time, my dad decided that we should do a sea lamprey and I'll tell you why, because it was not unusual for us to eat eels.
Eels, yeah. of
American
course.
eels. And of course,
Apparently they're delicious, right?
our waterways were full of them at the time. And so we, whenever we got lucky enough to get an eel or two, it was a big deal. In fact, it was so good that we didn't even buy it. from others that were fortunate enough to have them. So anyways, Dad decided we this new type of eel, we needed to consume it.
And did
All
it taste
I
like shit?
can remember starting, and I can remember it did not get consumed. So
Did
there
it
was
stink and-
there was something, I don't recall what it was, but there was something that definitely did not agree with our idea of what it should taste like.
Are there any other parasites that we eat? I don't think we eat anything with that type of consumption patterns because they only eat blood and flesh, right?
Yeah. I don't think there is either now that you mention it.
No.
No.
Bats.
Bats? We don't consume bats. But anyways, we tried. The Violas tried and failed miserably.
I wonder if they're like poisonous or toxic and lucky you didn't do it, lucky you didn't. Or did you guys take a taste or no?
Oh, yeah.
you did?
We all had to. There's one thing with my dad, okay?
Okay.
And I've kind of upheld the tradition. My dad was a believer that you do not have the option as a human being to say, ooh, I don't want to eat that if you have not tried it before. Right? That was a strict law.
Buddy with the snake head and gar.
Oh, Dad would
your dad
not.
would beat him up, wouldn't he?
Oh, he would not agree with him at all. You have to try stuff, right? So we try stuff, and yeah, this one was the only one that I can recall growing up that did not make it, did not pass.
Just look at the
test.
face of that picture, and that's why, right there.
Yeah, but you cut the head off,
Of course.
and it's another eel.
Yeah.
Really. At the end
It
of
is
the
an
day.
eel, right? Is it in the eel family? I'm assuming.
I don't know. That's a great question.
Dean, is that?
I
think
actually
it's an
don't
eel.
know. It might be its own thing considering it's a parasite.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that I lived through that period where, you saw a few of them and then all of a sudden you saw a lot of them. And for years they were everywhere. And then as I got into angling, especially Great Lakes fishing, you really started to pay attention and notice
It says
just how
here,
bad they are.
at their height, they were consuming over 100 million pounds of fish.
Yeah,
What the hell?
that's a lot.
So they're not eels.
They're not eels, okay. Are
What?
they anything? Did they say?
They're not related. They're their own thing.
snake,
A
they're,
lamprey is its own thing.
They're
a
not an
snail.
eel.
That's a snake and an eel.
A snail. There you go. Anyways, the good news is that in the 60s, we started developing chemicals that would be
You liked those days, didn't you?
fish. Well, there's that too. That was a great time for chemicals. I got to tell you right now. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that on this episode, but one day we'll have to. All right. We liked experimenting with various chemicals back in the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
Anyways, one of the items that was tested at the time, and by the way, testing was not like it is today, right? Testing back then meant, okay, give me that 45-gallon drum of that, dump it in there, see what happens. Let's stand around, see who dies and who doesn't die, right? That's basically it.
Yeah.
And they put this chemical in our waterways that was designed to slow down the growth of these lampreys, and in the hopes that eventually they would just go away, right? And for decades, it did not seem to be working, although we were persistent enough, we kept dumping it in our waterways, not really knowing what the after effects were. I remember also that at times it changed the color of the water. Instead of being clear, pristine water, it had a little bit of a dull, yellowy, orangey look to
A
it.
tea color.
Almost tea
the
color.
article we have up on the website now will have some pictures of that. It still happens.
It still happens,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
And of course we didn't know what was going on. We just thought, oh well, I guess somebody must have put something in there, and it didn't stop us from jumping in and swimming and drinking the stuff and all that.
you're
right?
swimming, you're going to get that water in your mouth for sure.
But unbeknownst to us, there was a battle going on, and it seems that we have finally won it.
Give me a hell yeah.
Yeah, that deserves a hell yeah.
In fact,
For sure.
we've eradicated, not quite, but we've gotten rid of 95% of the sea lampreys in the Great Lakes solely because of this chemical. Do we know what the chemical is, Dean?
It's called TFM. The actual name would be impossible for me to pronounce, but TFM is what it's most commonly called, and essentially it disrupts the energy of the larva until they die. So it's supposed to only affect lamprey. It affects, I've seen some other studies that it might affect a few other species, but lamprey are like super vulnerable to it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much, it wipes them up, or it wipes them out before they reach the parasitic stage, is from my understanding.
Wow. Did they say anything about the other species that might be affected?
Trout and salmonids, which I think you would think maybe the Atlantic salmon people would have
Jumped all over that. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I haven't heard, and everything you look online, it says it's mostly safe for every other species. But when you do dig into it, you see those species mentioned that they might be vulnerable as well.
Might be vulnerable.
I remember another thing that we tried back then is barriers.
Yeah, that's right.
We used to use lamprey barriers in all the creeks
shocking
and stuff.
too,
There was
wasn't it?
electrical. These
Yeah,
barriers were
yeah.
electrical.
That's right.
And supposedly it wasn't affecting other species either. But I find that hard to believe. That
Well,
that
you and
salmon
I, we've
trout-
seen that. Those when fish get shocked, they come back real quick.
Yeah,
So they must
true,
have had a
true.
way of culling the eels out and letting the others go, maybe, or something like that. I don't know how these systems work, but they get a good shot. I think they give them like 300 or 600 volts, but it's just a quick shot, and they turn up and they upside down. Then all of a sudden, within seconds, most fish are turned back and take off again. So they probably maybe they're culling with the stunned fish like that. Maybe I don't know.
I'd love to know how much money we have spent on the lamprey program over the years.
Money
it's
well
cost us.
spent, though.
What it's
If you got
cost
down to
us.
95%.
Well, I
down.
was going to say money well spent, but I think the money would have been better spent had we been on top of it at the early stages when they first were introduced, like we're trying to do now with the grass carp. A good example. Back then there was no such thing as being well informed or education or
Probably no invasive species center there. You know what I mean? Nothing like that. So.
Right? We just did our thing. But be curious to find out how much money we have invested in this program to eradicate the lamprey.
A lot of it's American, I bet, too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But that's why prevention is probably the best action to take, which we're hopefully going to do with this nasty critter. But anyways, the whole story is on fishingcanada.com as we speak. Mainstream media has been all over this as well.
As Dean said, you can see some pictures and imagery showing the colors of the water, et cetera, et cetera. So, cool.
All right.
It's interesting stuff. I like that.
Fan question of the week brought to you by fishfindermounts.com, folks. Fishfindermounts.com. And this is the perfect time of year if you're starting to think about setting up the new rig for this coming year. Is there a better time than, that first quarter of the year when you can't take the boat out, but boy, you can sure work on it. And this is the perfect time of year to maybe look at ways of re-rigging the boat to be a little more user-friendly. And I'm talking your screens, I'm talking your transducers, I'm talking all of those wonderful electronic products that maybe you got for Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And you're trying to figure out, how am I going to effectively use this stuff? Well, let me just tell you, if you go to fishfindermounts.com, not only will you see what you can do, but you can actually order the stuff, and it makes your life a whole lot easier. It's fishfindermounts.com. Bringing you fan question of the week.
Fan question of the week is from Charlie Harmon from Ontario via YouTube.
Via YouTube. I like
Nice.
this.
Well done, Charlie. They're starting to get it now. Hey, these people. Charlie, I love that name, Charlie Harmon. It sounds like a jazz guitar player or something like that.
Now,
Charlie Harmon.
a little confusion here on my part, Dean. Maybe you can clarify this for me. It says, submit your questions to us at info@fishingcanada.com. Or Facebook and Instagram page. But Charlie submitted it via YouTube.
Well,
in the last episode, you requested that they submit through YouTube.
Right.
Now,
But
however,
should we not change this now then to read, you can go to fishingcanada.com or you can go to Facebook.
Changed on my end over here.
Oh, it changed. It just my.
Just your sheet.
I don't need to know. You
The paper
just,
doesn't update on
Exactly.
time.
All right. Thank you very much.
So we'll go back to that in a second, okay? We're going to go back to that submitting a question. on the YouTube thing in a second. Let's do the questions first, and we'll end on that because we'll give them a little push for that, okay?
Okay.
Okay, from Charlie. Are there any species you guys avoid targeting on the Fishing Canada show? I.e. too hard to find, too fragile, not sellable, as in people not liking to watch it, etc., etc. Pretty good question, I'd say, Charlie.
Okay.
I'll tell you one that we... okay, go ahead.
First of all, I think there's two different things we need to address here. We need to address on a personal level, and then we need to address as a fishing show.
Oh.
Right? I think those are important. But anyways, go ahead.
I was going to say one that we avoid-ish. We don't always avoid it, but we do avoid sometimes is muskie.
I was going to use muskie as exactly that
And
example.
we'll tell you why. If it's the fish of 10,000 casts and we're trying to put a TV show together and it took us 20,000 casts to get that fish, maybe we ran out of tape or something. I don't know. They're such a hard species to often, shoot. And you'll see a lot of muskie hunter. I think it's muskie hunter. Yeah, there's a big show like that. These guys that specialize in it. Sometimes their episodes are just one fish episode. You know what I mean? Many outings, really good muskie guys. I have a lot of friends that love muskie fishing, and they come back empty-handed days upon days and say, we had a great trip. We saw 7 muskies. Well, that doesn't make much of a TV show when you really, when you're not putting them on tape. So we have to, we consider that a lot of times. So,
By the way, I don't know whether you're aware or not, we stopped using tape back in the, early 90s.
I know, but I just wanted to use that.
It's just a term. Mr. Bowman is just using it as a term.
To show the old school in me, you know what I mean? So yeah, the muskie thing is I'll tell you another. We'll talk about this in a bit. Like a lake, like our first show. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. Our first episode, it wasn't. The muskies weren't in season, but if muskies are in season, we have lake trout, walleye, largemouth, smallmouth, muskie. Muskie will probably be our last choice because it's the toughest fish to catch, right?
But
we might add it in there.
It's the sexiest fish.
It's awesome. I mean, they are
exotic.
It's the beast. It's the apex predator of the
right.
water, right? So
Right.
it's a great white shark of our freshwater, but it's just a tough go. So I say muskie is one we avoid-ish. We don't avoid it completely because we put some pretty decent muskie shows out there, but
And one of the reasons it's tough, by the way, just so that because some people that might be new to this whole notion of fishing might think, well, you guys are the experts. Why would it be tough? I mean, fishing. The problem with muskie is not so much that they're, although they are, I was going to say, not so much that they're difficult to fool, although they are. It's the fact that there's just not as many of them. And I don't know if anybody's ever done a study, Dean, maybe we can look this up. If we take an acre of fertile fishable water in any given lake that has all species in it.
Northwest Ontario, where they got lots of population of
and
fish.
let's say that in that acre there are 100 walleye that live there and maybe, 80 smallmouth bass and et cetera, there might only be one muskie that lives there.
Yeah.
It's like the
That's a good
lions,
point.
in Africa. There's fewer lions than there are gazelles. And there's a reason for that, because lions predate on gazelles. And if you had more lions than gazelles, then the gazelles would be gone. So nature has a way of balancing itself out. And the apex predator, as Peter referred to the muskie as, has to be kept in check. And that's how nature does it. There's just, they're not really good spawners. They don't live for long periods of time. They need there's a lot of requirements that go into a muskie's life that some of the other lesser game fish don't require, and that kind of keeps them in check. So as anglers, quite honestly, if we only have now. Diehard muskie anglers are going to completely disagree with what I'm going to say, and I'm fine with that. But if you only have a finite amount of hours to spend fishing each year, I don't know about you, but I kind of prefer spending it catching.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to put myself in a position to succeed, which means I'm probably going to fish walleye, bass, pike, like all of the other species that are much more plentiful than
that's why I say I've always said after meeting these muskie anglers that they are the hardest core of hardcore anglers.
Because
they
know
dedicated.
Going in, it's tough.
I'm going to get my ass kicked today, but if I get that one big one, it's so worthwhile. So you get what they're saying, but it's just they're a step beyond the average angler. That's for sure. that wants to catch a lot of fish. Right?
My hat to those folks.
Yeah, those guys are
Steve
so good.
Nitzwicki.
Oh my God.
And Chris King.
Yeah, and Pat is in there too.
Well, Pat, to a little bit lesser extent, but those two blow my mind. These are two buddies of ours. Chris King of NHL hockey fame, by the way. He now is, what is he, the senior vice president?
He just got a little bump up there, didn't he?
Yeah. Anyways, these guys in the month of October and November are out in the middle of the night in the most horrendous weather conditions imaginable.
They just did it. They just got back.
They just finished. Out there bobbing around, fishing for muskie. Why? Because they just love it. They love going 8 hours, 9 hours, 2 days without seeing a fish.
November, in late November, the ice is on the back bays, and that these guys are out there, as Ange says, at night too, not just in the daytime, but at night too. And that wind is howling, and it's cold as hell. And they come back, and you say, "How'd you make out?" "Oh, we didn't get any tonight, but we're going to go back out or tomorrow night." I say, "Oh boy."
Kinger told me one time last winter, early winter, late fall. He texted me one night. He said, "Okay, I'm all wrapped up here," because at the time, and I don't know whether he still does this or not, but he used to oversee the war room for the NHL, where if there's a goal to be disallowed or a penalty to be whatever, he was in charge of that stuff, right? I remember one night he sent me a text at like 12:15 or 12:45. He said, "Okay, I'm done here at work. I'm heading up to Nipissing."
I remember that.
He says, "I got to go up there and show the boys how it's done." And I guess he got up there about 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the middle of the night. And the boys came over and picked him up at Dokey's. And he went directly, they didn't even go back to the cottage. They went directly out the lake and spent the next, I don't know.
And he got the big one too, didn't he?
And he ended up getting it. So congratulations to Chris.
That's hardcore. Another fish species that we often avoid-ish is pike, and that's because in our pike waters around here, for the most part, a 36 incher is a big one. I mean, in the sense of reality, but on TV, you really need these 40-inch plus pike to make it look like good TV, right? So it's another one that we don't.
We've got coming up this year, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. We have a chance on it. But there's something, we're going to go pike fishing. Yeah, we're going to catch 8 or 10 pike on camera, but a lot of them are these little rats and snakes and stuff like that. So we avoid that. So, we'd rather do the walleye thing or smallmouth thing if they're, they're usually available in the same bodies of water. So that's another one Panfish is another one. Crappies we've done in the past, but we don't do much. Like we've never done perch. We've never done bluegill. I don't remember any bluegill shows. Maybe a long time ago, but which we could do.
We did a rock bass show one time. I do remember that. Rock bass of all things.
Was that by accident?
No. We were participating in the Rock Bass Jamboree on Hay Lake, Ontario. Our good friend Phil Morlock said, "Come on up. We've got a bunch of kids from the local, orphanage or whatever it was, and we're going to feed them a mess of rock bass. And not only that, but we got way too many rock bass in Hay Lake, and they're affecting the bass population. So we're going to have at it for 3 days, and they're good eating." And that was the whole thing about it. He says, we're going to feed these things to the village, if you will, and the kids, and introduce them to the fine cuisine that rock bass can be. And we did. We did rock bass for 3 days.
That's awesome.
And it was insane. It was a lot of fun, But would we shoot a TV show around that? I don't know. I don't think so. And that's the whole thing about television. That's why I wanted to separate the two. I would go up personally to do the Rock Bass Jamboree, but I certainly wouldn't suggest to the people here that we go and shoot a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like I mentioned, like bluegill, the same thing. I love going bluegill fishing, but we don't want to, put it on TV, so I don't know why, but yeah.
I have a question for you that just came up as we're having, that's what I love about these discussions. And that's why listening to this podcast or any podcast about fishing is so important, because sometimes you get the best information coming out of nowhere. So I mentioned earlier on that there are fewer muskie per acre of fertile water than there are any other species. Why? Because it's the lion of the savannas. It's you need to have it under control because it's such a mighty predator that if there were too many of them, they would eat all of their food source, right? How about pike? Why doesn't pike fall into that category? It looks like a muskie. It predates like a muskie. It has all of the same features as a muskie. We know it can grow to huge proportions, yet it seems like there are more pike in the water sometimes than there are anything else.
Yep, that's true.
So why is that, Dean?
I don't know. That's a tough one for me.
A biologist might be, maybe a
biologist
fisheries
might be.
biologist.
Can we ask Dr. Cook at some point on Fish Talk with the Doc?
Yeah.
Maybe we can make
one.
that, one of the first episodes of the year.
The one thing I do know is muskie have a tough time spawning because they spawn later than pike. So when they share water, their eggs get eaten up by everything. And I think...
But there's a reason for that. That's nature's way of keeping them under control.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is if we took a pike and a muskie, and we've never done this might be an interesting experiment. You take a pike and a muskie and you put them in a controlled environment. Let's call it an aquarium for the sake of argument. I wonder if the muskie will outcompete the pike for food. I mean, we think pike are ferocious, insane hunters and feeders, but maybe they're really not. Maybe it's okay to have a lot of pike because they're not as successful at hunting that maybe muskie are.
Well, you don't see big pike in lakes that have muskie normally, so they must outcompete them in a certain sense and kind of keep their the size of them at bay. Because you don't see in the Kawarthas or anything like that, like huge pike coming out of these musky lakes.
You don't.
But they're starting now, guys.
What's a big pike there in those lakes?
Well, right now, I would say you can get, 40 inchers.
You can?
I think so.
And there's still muskie in there doing well?
I don't know about the muskie population. I'm just saying now the pike population is definitely taking over. Rice Lake, which we never, when Ange and I fished tournaments, there was no pike in there. We got the odd incidental muskie out of there. Yeah. Now, apparently, there's just loads of pike in there, and they are getting bigger and bigger, everybody's saying so.
The point I was trying to make, though, is not necessarily how the two of them would compete against each other, but if the theory is, and this isn't a theory that I just made up today, it's a known fact. If the theory is that if you have too big of a muskie population, chances are real good that smallmouth and or walleye and or anything else that swims is probably going to be hurting because you have too many of this apex predator. And I keep going back to, the flatlands in Africa. If you have too many prides of lions and whatnot, they're going to eat everything that walks, right? So maybe pike does not consume as much. Maybe pike is not as successful of a predator as muskie in that sense, right? Because nature lets it kind of go and just rebuild its populations. It seems like some lakes are just full of northern pike. It's hard not to catch pike in most bodies of fresh water, right? So maybe they're not as successful in terms of hunting and eating and stuff as muskie are.
You'd think they would be.
I
They're
would
pretty
think
damn
so.
accurate, you know what I mean? And they're piggish. And there's always, I don't know, that's a good one.
Right? Why are there more of them than there are muskie? That's a question for Dr. Cook.
Dr. Cook.
I got it.
I know some lakes, very quickly, Sean's Cottage Lake, it is loaded with small muskies. Loaded. To an annoying point.
Oh.
And catching them I catch them on Ned rigs all the time. Muskies on Ned rigs.
How
Up to,
big? How big?
Up to 30 something inches, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I've never caught a 40 out of there. Sean said he's seen them over 40. But it just seems like, where the hell? There's so many of these,
There's
and
no pike?
There's no pike. Smallmouth, largemouth, walleye are in there. And they seem to be holding well-ish. Every now and then, it seems like the bass fishing gets slower too all the time now. But the muskies, they're just, without trying for them, you get them.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Interesting. Nature is wonderful. And that's what makes, being an angler so damn interesting as far as I'm concerned. Because there is no definitive answer to any of the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
There isn't. There just isn't. Because a lot of it doesn't make sense. If you try and put logic to it and try and apply math, it just doesn't work out. Yeah. That's the beauty of fishing.
And
is that
each lake is
still-
different too,
Oh.
right? You know what I mean? So interesting.
Other than that, I mean, we love targeting stuff that we think you would enjoy watching, and consequently, sometimes we'll make those decisions not to fish for something that we don't think has a television personality. How's that?
Right.
Doesn't mean we wouldn't fish it personally. It just means that we don't think it makes for good
Exactly.
TV.
So go back now to how Charlie submitted this question.
Yes.
'Cause we're going to give some, don't we give bonuses too on this
So
deal?
here's what I think we've already talked about this, but just a reminder, if you want to qualify for a $100 fishincanada.com store coupon, which means you can take that and go to the store and have at it. You got $100 free.
Yeah, baby.
You have to submit until further notice. Dean, is that the way this is working?
Yep. Until we tell you otherwise.
Until
Okay.
otherwise.
You have to submit your question via YouTube.
And,
Come on now.
and you will not get the bonus if you do not subscribe.
I knew
How's
there was
that?
a catch. I knew there was a catch.
You need to subscribe. Otherwise,
I knew
no
it.
bonus for you. No soup for you.
I knew it. I knew you had ulterior motives.
I got it right there. Must subscribe.
So, if you have a question that you would like to ask, and if you would like to have a shot at the $100 coupon, all you have to do is go to YouTube. Well, most of you are there now watching this. And if you're not already subscribed, you have to subscribe, submit the question, hope that Dean, when he puts his arm in that rusty old drum to pull out the question every week, he pulls yours out and you get 100 buckaroos.
Is that it? Are we good?
100 buckaroos.
Did we do good,
Come on
boys?
now.
In
We
the
did
form
good.
of a
That's great.
coupon. Vov, is that correct? Vova,
We're
thumbs
good.
up.
We're
All
good,
right.
buddy. We're good.
Okay, we can move on from that now.
You know subscribe, you know wind.
All right, here
How's
you go.
that?
Main segment. So now we're going to start talking about the season that is about to air. This is
on now.
brought to you by the good folks at Sail, the outdoor store, home for all things ice fishing, which would be appropriate right now.
Right about now,
Including rods, tackle, clothes, and a whole bunch more. But they also have stuff that doesn't have to be used for ice fishing, obviously. Mostly in outerwear and footwear. And
God, they got so much. They have such
my
a
God.
vast array of product.
If you haven't been and you're within driving distance of a Sail store, it's worth the drive. That's all I can tell you. It's worth the drive.
Hell yeah.
However, most of us are not within close proximity. So the answer, go to sail.ca. That's SAIL.ca and have at it online. You're buying stuff online anyways. Why not go to the heart, the very center of the outdoor buying activity that's happening at Sail?
Come on now.
And I'm told they still have their 60% off on some select items. So
They pretty much always have 60% off on something. It's unreal the sales that they have on. So
Sales
we're
at
checking it
Sail.
out. There you go.
Okay, episode number 1. Are these in any chronological order?
They
Mr.
are in
Taylor?
order
Very
of how they're airing.
chromatically.
All right, so
ordered.
this episode will be airing
This
or aired
Saturday.
This Saturday.
this coming Saturday.
This weekend. This
Yes.
first.
This coming weekend. This coming weekend is the
Dean's
first
looking
episode.
Dean's looking at his calendar now. He's saying, "Okay, Ange, don't do this to me. What do you do?" Okay, yeah, I think so. Yes.
It happens to be episode 553 in the
What?
Fishing
Give me a hell
Canada.
yeah.
Are you kidding me?
That's what you get for 40 years of service, my friends.
That's a lot,
you
a
break
lot,
the
a lot.
500 episode barrier. We're at 553. It's called Perrault Lake Adventures. And let me tell you, it's Nordic Point Lodge was the host for the episode. Will and the good folks at Nordic Point Lodge put us up for the week.
This is way up in northwest Ontario,
Northwestern Ontario.
close to the Dryden area,
And
close-ish to the
it's
Dryden
just
area.
close to Lac Sewell, right? It's
Yep,
just on
not
this
far,
side
yep.
of Lac Sewell.
Yep.
Walleye, pike, lake trout. We caught them all in very close proximity of each other, going back to what we were talking about. So obviously walleye, pike, and other species like lake trout do coexist. And so pike are not the big threat that, say, a muskie would be.
Yep. Yeah.
A couple of things that I found really interesting about this episode. Number one is that unlike most operations where you're kind of locked into fishing just that body of water that the lodge is situated on, this one's kind of unique in that there are about 100 fishable lakes within a reasonable distance of the lodge, and the operator, the owner, encourages you to experiment in the other lakes.
Correct.
It's a drive-to. It's a rubber tire outfit. So you can drive there and bring your boat, and they encourage you every day to go to a different lake within a half hour or an hour drive of the actual lodge and sample a different type of fishery, maybe even a different species altogether. I know we did for 2 or 3 of the days. We said, no, well, if we have the option, let's take advantage of it. And you'll see it on the episode that we aired.
It was fun. Yeah. And I mean, like Ann says, you have to bring your own rig to do this, obviously, right? However, if you want to just go to Nordic Point Lodge and fish Perrault Lake, you use one of their boats and you're there for the week too. So, what normally we would do is we drive up and launch the boat. We fished a couple of days on Perrault Lake like that. And then we said, hey, you know what? Let's go. And they have a boat launch right at the facility. You throw your boat on the trailer. Let's go. We take off for the day. You come back. You drop her in that same lake if you want. Or if you're going home, you could, or elsewhere after that. But drop her back in the lake, put her back at the dock, and you can fish Nordic.
You're not telling the folks what really drove us to do that. And that was the fact that we had horrendous weather conditions. The wind was blowing. I've never seen wind like that.
It never stopped.
It just never stopped.
In the same direction. Right into the lodge. Right in our faces.
And so for the first couple of days, we went out and we took the Princecraft out there where places. We took the Princecraft where, honestly, you shouldn't, because the water was not very friendly. The wind was blowing so hard. And it was so difficult to achieve the optimal boat control, which we talk about all the time. Without boat control, you might as well not even fish. And boat control on this shoot was that one thing that just stood out to me, how difficult it was, how much work was involved in keeping ourselves in a position.
And the camera makes it way worse, right? Like you have to factor in so many more things than just, can we be on the fish?
Oh,
it makes it almost impossible.
That's the worst part of it.
I never even thought of it. I was just talking about me being out there in that water because the waves were horrendous. Horrendous.
I'll tell you what saved our butts, though, in that sense. Now, not for Volva's angles, because that definitely is a problem that Dean's talking about, but the new Garmin Kraken trolling motor. When you put that thing on anchor mode, I don't care what, and it's got a 63-inch shaft on it. You just put her all the way down deep. That thing did lock us up pretty good. You have to admit, the accuracy of that thing in all those winds, that was pretty damn good. Pretty impressive. Yeah, so.
I totally agree with that because I didn't think it was going to be possible. But after a couple of days of getting beat up, and we were physically getting beat up, and we had some great fishing. It was a great story. I know Pete's chomping at the bit to talk about that. After a couple of days, we thought, why are we doing this? We've got 100 lakes all within driving distance of here. Surely to God, one of them is not getting blown on like this thing is.
It was windy there, too. We went that other lake, remember? Right. It was a small lake. It was still windy. We thought, what the hell? What would it be like in the big lakes? So, anyways.
But an interesting thing happened on this episode, and a lot of you might, when you see it, you're going to say, there's no way that this actually happened.
It's fake. We set it up.
It's fake. You guys set it up. And I got to tell you, it was all organic. Everything that happened in this episode actually took place. And first time in our 40 years of doing this thing that this has ever happened. 2 things happened. Number one, you misplaced the net.
I forgot our net, our walleye net, our small net. I forgot it here at the shop. We were just going through everything. It's the first shoot of the year. We're getting all the rods, the reels, the tackle. Okay, we're going to be fishing walleye. We're going to fish pike. We're going to whatever we're going to be fishing for. And I have a list. I have a checklist that I use for my personal fishing and for my Fishing Canada fishing. And it's obviously a net is on there, or all nets of appropriate sizes. And I didn't go over the list, and boom, we get up there. Where the hell is the net? Sort of thing like that. So I thought we had it all alleviated. I thought, okay, we got it, because we borrowed Will's net out of his boat.
The owner of the
Will Pelowski.
operation, yeah.
Yeah, so perfect. That's beautiful. So we go fishing that day, and I think that was a pre-fishing day for us. We weren't even filming that day. And so then we come back in, tie the boat off. Okay, we got some fish located like that. We get out on the water the next day, not thinking about the net. The last thing I'm thinking about, because we got a net in the boat now, right? So we get out there, Ange hooks into a stud of a walleye on a little 8-pound test drop shot rig, so you know it's not
windswept, by the
very
way.
delicate situation. And I go, "Where's the net?" And he goes, "What do you mean, where's the net?" And, well, it was Will's net. No, we don't have Will's net. So somebody went over that night and took that net back out of our boat and put it back into Will's boat, I guess. So we were there again with no net. So I fumbled around, and I should have. I don't know what, I was trying so delicately to get that fish in, and it was a little wee single octopus hook, and the fish got off at the boat, and Ange just laughed. He just, we both laughed because it was such a stupid situation. And then 5 casts later,
I get into another one.
Sets the hook. Okay, I got it. Well, this one feels even bigger. We says, "What's that red thing on it?" And he says, "That's the handle." And it was a partial net. The handle was excluded, but the netting part of the hoop and all the rubber meshing, Ange hooked into that and literally brought it to the boat, and it was the exact net and brand that I left here back at the office. Only it was covered in scum and algae, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we, like Ange says, you can't fake that. I mean, you could fake that, I guess.
I suppose you could.
But we did not, just swear to God, we did not fake that. And then we used that net for the rest of the shoot. That was our half net for the rest of the shoot.
And it saved our bacon.
We got a lake trout in it. We got walleye in it. We got pike in it. We had a great shoot after that with it. So it brought a great interesting flavor to that show.
You're going to love the episode. Yeah,
it was
absolutely
good.
love the episode. And it's certainly going to be one of the most memorable that we've ever produced. Not necessarily because of the fishing, although the fishing was outstanding, but this net situation. And a lot of you that are watching this and listening to this, I'm sure you've had similar experiences where you get out to where you need to be and something goes wrong. There's something that you left behind. There's a piece of equipment that malfunctions, and you say, "Why? Why me, Lord? Why?"
Yeah.
I wait all month to get out fishing for this one day, and boom. Well, this is what happens when things do end up going your way on episode that's airing this coming weekend.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Episode number 553. There you go. And by the way, I want to make a quick mention about something else. We were trying to think before this podcast some of the memorable things that happened on this year's shoots that really stand out. And I want to give a shout out to our team here because last year this team really came together and a lot of good things happened because of the behind the scenes work and effort that was put in by the rest of the group. I mean, every week you see this clown and I out there having a great time.
Clowning around.
We wouldn't be out there having a great time were it not for everybody else behind the scenes, Vova being one, and Dean, and Nick, and Steve, and
now.
Here, Joe, and Rick, who do the post-production part. None of what we do would ever happen without this group. And this year that you're about to see that we're unveiling this week, it was one of the best years in terms of the team working together and having great successes because of the hard work. So hats off to everybody.
Give me a hell yeah.
Way to go, boys.
Episode 554. Mr. Bowman.
Mackenzie River monsters. The Mackenzie River, I mean, we've talked about this on a past podcast when we got back from this trip, but the Mackenzie River starts from Great Slave Lake in Northwest Territories and empties up ultimately into the Arctic Ocean. And you're thinking, what are we going to be fishing for up there? And Great Slave Lake is obviously Lake Trout City, and there's this, that, the other. But pike was our target, northern pike, and Braebant Lodge, and they target trophy pike. Like their whole deal is trophy pike. There are walleye up there, and there's some big walleye
We'll
up
talk
there.
about that too in a minute.
There's grayling up there. There are Inconnu up there. There are other fish species, but their main species are these giant northern pike. And in these pike, we were talking about muskies earlier, and muskies being bigger and all that. These pike are muskie size pike. They are so freaking big. You know, a 40-incher up there is nothing. And Peter, the lodge owner, if you got 40 to 42 inches all day long, he'd be disappointed. He would say, "Wow, you never got any big ones, eh?" And these are 20-pound plus pike, right?
How
and they
does the prey even survive this?
Yeah.
How is it even possible? It just shows you the power of the Mackenzie River and the amount of resource-based food and all that stuff is in there. Because literally we went into an area that you caught pike on every single drop, every single cast.
Once you found them, yep.
Once you found, and they're the size of this table.
They're big, like
They're
they're
not little
like
fish.
nothing survives down there.
They
right?
need to be fed.
Yeah.
Those big animals need to feed.
Yeah, they're in the river, so they come in the river to spawn. So they come from Great Slave Lake into the river to spawn, and then they go back out to the lake eventually. And that's the deal why they're in these river areas. I don't know how the river would work out, you know, in August or September, whenever
Not
these
that
fish
good,
probably
apparently.
not. Yeah, probably not. But
I think they're out of there. They closed.
They're gone.
yeah,
they're
their
gone.
lodges are even closed. So, so it's a very unique fishery in that. And we were fortunate enough. Obviously, when you go there, there's 3 plane rides in, et cetera, that the boats, again, I'll mention Garmin again, they had Garmin Force trolling motors on them. And we have never gone to a lodge with Garmin trolling motors on them yet for their lodge boats. And that helped us so much.
This was first class, right? This was first class operation.
Because there were so many times we were working in the river has current, and it had wind, of course. Hans talked about wind earlier. It had both of those again, but we could anchor that Garmin to the perfect spot where we were working this long break line, and it was just like, it was so, that way everything lined up for us, right? We ran our live scope shooting forward to see the break line that we were fishing, and then you just sort of didn't look for the fish. We just looked for the break line, stayed 50 feet back, 40 feet back, and used the trolling motor, and it was, once we got onto it, and Yozuri twitch baits were the deal for that, and jerk baits.
There's some incredible drone footage that Vova took on this shoot that I didn't see until we got back here, obviously. We were, as Pete said, we were working basically a break line. That
long break line,
seemed
like
to have
miles long.
And that's where the fish were tucked in. And we used the forward viewing sonar for that, the Garmin's, the live scope for that. But it wasn't until we got here and started looking at some of the drone footage that I realized just how important finding that break line was. Because from the air, and you'll see on this episode that's coming up, called Mackenzie River Monsters, you'll see how precise that break is, and you'll literally see us catching fish right where you think they should be, because from the drone's point of view, it's so crystal clear. But when you're down on the same plane as the surface of the water, this stuff is hard to find.
It's hard to find.
It's really hard to
That's why
find.
we use the live scope. It totally defined it. We'll show that on the show too. We have live scope footage showing the break that we were working like that. So another thing about that shoot that we were talking about predator prey, et cetera, is where we saw that pike in the river eating another pike. We went, what the hell's going on? There was some splashing and flashing going on in the river right in front of the lodge. And it was, Peter went out to look, and it was a pike with another pike in its mouth. They're predating on each other, sort of thing like that.
Well, we also saw that in that small little bay that we were fishing walleye later on, or was it you and I, Dean, where one of us had a pike on, and then another pike came up and was kind of fumbling around with it.
Yeah, that might have been you and I when we were fishing the.
It was you and I too. Both.
And it happened to us
You
too.
had a giant one come after a pike or a walleye that we had on.
So they're predating on each other as well.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about insanity. It was crazy. However, it also had its moment. You know how we talked about the net in the previous episode? Well, this one had its net moment, but it wasn't a net. Okay, so one of the things that sold us on going to NWT, and in particular to this lodge, was the fact that it was first class. I mean, it was literally an oasis in the middle of the desert in this case. the Delta, the Mackenzie Delta. And it was a little piece of heaven because the lodge itself has just about every creature comfort and amenity that you could ever ask for. And it's all first class. So we were really looking forward to going up there and enjoying the opulence that this first class operation was going to offer us. And at the same time, catch humongous trophy pike. But much like the net that happened on the previous episode, we were throwing a little bit of a curveball as well. One of the things when we first got there, Peter, the co-owner, took us around to show us the operation. And one of the things that he was extremely proud of was his power generating system. And in particular, the backup generators that he had for the main generators. And it was a really, really unbelievably well-designed plan here, because after all, you're in the middle of nowhere. You have a power failure up there, and she's tough slugging. Okay, you don't. Everything is in peril, including the food.
The food is the big one
that you're going to be consuming. So he was extra proud of the fact that, doesn't matter here if whatever, but it would never happen because I service these things all the time. But even if our main generating system were to go out temporarily, because keep in mind, to get it repaired, that means somebody has to fly in from Hay River, which is the closest fly-in outpost that has a mechanic or an engineer or an electrician that could fly out and repair this.
If they have it at Hay River, otherwise it comes from Yellowknife.
From Yellowknife. So he said, we don't take chances like that. So we have this wonderful backup system that we put in place, and that goes out, boom, this kicks in. We don't even know we had a power failure. Wow. We've never seen anything like that before. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Well, guess what, folks? Day 2, we had a power failure on the main system. And immediately after that went down, the backup system went down. And so we spent the rest of our time in paradise with no power.
Well, we had the little generators.
Oh, yeah, for charging Vova's equipment.
We could charge our equipment, and it kept the fridge going, and the kitchen area was lit up a little
tough,
bit, right?
Man. It was tough.
Yeah.
The poor chef.
Oh my God,
he did amazing for that, for not having power.
We had world-class meals with no power, basically.
With no power.
You know what I mean?
It was crazy.
So.
And of course, if there was ever a time where you can look into a person's eyes, and even though they're putting up a good front, you could feel the pain in their soul, because it's not just anybody that's here at the lodge. It's the Fishing Canada show, and this was a big deal for them, and.
And they did a great job from start to finish of that. They did a great job. And they literally had to fly in a mechanic to eventually get there to fix them up. So,
and he had problems, if I recall, with the parts, right?
I think there was a lot to it.
They had to cannibalize from the backup unit, and then that was,
poor
my
guys.
God.
Stellar job they did, though, for the conditions.
What was Peter's father's name?
Andrew,
that's it. I thought it was Alex. Andrew. Anyways, our thanks to and our hats off to both Peter and Andrew Fox, owners of the operation. You guys pulled it off. It was a miracle. You guys pulled it off. I think helped us produce one of the best Fishing Canada episodes of all time in our whole 40-year career. I think this pike show is going to blow minds. Absolutely blow minds. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Tons of fun.
Episode 555 is North Country Lumberjacks Lodge, right? What do you remember about that one, Peter?
I thought that was a very cool show, in that this is again in Northwest Ontario. Sturgeon Lake is what is the name of the lake. There's a ton. Everybody knows the Sturgeon Lake, Sturgeon Bay, Sturgeon River, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many of them out there, but this is one that we really didn't know about in Northwest Ontario. Ange and I didn't, but the more we looked into it, the more there was a great story to it too. So it used to be a great walleye fishery. Through mining and shite coming down the rivers and into the waters, it pretty much ruined the walleye fishery.
I think it if I'm not mistaken, did it not totally collapse? Yeah.
On the southern end of the lake where the lodge is, the
Totally
walleye weren't on the
collapsed,
radar. Yeah.
And then so when the MNR and the locals and everybody said, hey, there's a problem here.
And the mines.
And the mines. Well, the mines were reminded of the problem, right? They don't know it until somebody tells them.
Yeah.
But they quickly got on board, and they basically brought that population back to an incredible fishery, which we just experienced that year, or this year in the show. And we talk about that in there, and we found one of the areas where they cleaned up the most, and Ange and I found the spot. And man,
the
it
Bell
was on
River.
fire. It was unbelievable fishing for smallmouth, for walleye, pike, and we even got incidental suckers. So basically, what we figured is that these fish were following the suckers in, just like suckers follow game fish in to eat their eggs. We're thinking that a lot of these predator fish are now following the suckers in to either eat the suckers, their eggs, or whatever else they could get, and they're kind of maybe scavenging. I'm not sure how it works with smallmouth, like for instance, behind suckers, but they might eat their eggs, right? I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't.
You caught that pike,
We got a pike, and it was
we
spewing
swear
eggs.
it spewed eggs, and it wasn't its own eggs.
Yeah, we thought, okay, why would she be spewing eggs so late in the year? And her wasn't a big belly full of spawn. You couldn't see it, and it was June probably.
Yeah.
That thing would have spawned 2 months before that.
for
You know what I
sure.
mean? So and they didn't look like pike eggs.
No.
So then we looked. They said, "Oh my God, maybe that girl was in there eating these, or that guy could have been anyone eating these sucker eggs." So
And it was all over the boat.
oh, he spewed it all over the place. Yeah, it was crazy. So. Very interesting show. It was. I mean, and that spot was so much fun. We were catching them on crankbaits. We
it
had.
was a blast.
How often do you get to cast cranks? In current areas, shallow cranks in shallow water, and
You dream of it.
You literally dream of it. Yeah, it was so much fun.
Fun episode. You're going to enjoy it. It's number 555. But wait, before we leave this episode,
I just saw the next page.
it too had its moments. It just dawned on me. Every episode so far has had a super highlight. This one too had a super highlight. Mm-hmm. The first evening that we were there, their lead guide,
Alan.
yeah, he said, "Hey guys, I know you're not shooting tonight, but do you want to go and check out this really, really off the beaten path little piece of water that you might want to maybe use this week while you're shooting?" And we said, "Hell yeah, let's go." So Pete and I got in our Princecraft, our Expedition 200, and followed him in his little smaller boat. He had about a 17 foot tinny.
Yep.
And he said, "Yeah." He says, "Come on." He says, "Follow me. I'll take you to it, and then you guys can decide if it's good enough for tomorrow. You can go shoot in it." And we thought, "Hell yeah!" And so he took us to the end of this lake, an arm in this lake, and he stops in front of. We just saw a solid rock wall from where we were. We thought, "What the hell's he doing there?" Well, we soon figured out that there was a little tiny opening in this granite wall, the width of our boat. And he had said to us before we left, he says, "Do you guys have paddles on your boat?" I said, "Well, no, we have a little emergency.
20-footer with a
We have a little
250.
emergency paddle." But he says, no. He says, you're going to need two full-size paddles. We've got an electric motor. Why do we? Anyways, he went and got a couple and put them in the boat. We couldn't figure out what he was doing, why we needed paddles. But anyways, so we're not going to argue with the local. We went, and there it was. There was a little tiny opening in the wall that was just the size of our boat, and it had a trickle of water snaking its way through it with jaggedy-ass boulders sticking out of it. And he went started pushing himself through there. Now we figured out why you needed paddles, because they were using paddles to actually push the boat through. And we thought, oh God, I don't know, is this even possible? And I believe I'm the one who made the executive decision wrong that it was. Mm-hmm. I said, hell yeah,
we can do this.
We've gone through worse than that. Come on.
We can do this. I remember those words. Yeah, we can do it. Sure, Ange.
Anyway, so
He's right. He was right. We could do it.
We did it. We got stuck in the middle of it. He had to, he was up clear of the channel now, and he had a long rope in his boat with a float tied to the end of it. He's done this before, this guy. Yeah. And he sent the rope down the trickle of water with the float on it, because he knew it could be tied to the front of our boat, and he was going to pull us through.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what he did. And of course, he's grinding the hull through these. We're pushing off with
some nice scratches and dings on this.
Oh my God!
This is a piece of water that I swear to God, if you're a trout fisherman, you wouldn't even stop in this part of the area to trout fish. It's so shallow and skinny and
jaggedy
horrible.
ass.
Horrible. You just
horrible.
Okay. I'll wait till I get a little bit more water, at least 2 feet of water. Oh my God!
Anyways, he pulled us through, and it was like pulling.
And once we finally got through, we said, shit, we got to come back out of this thing. There's only one way home, boy. And Ed says, it'll be easier going out. And it was worse. It was friggin' worse.
Needless to say, we put a lot, first time ever that I can recall, where we actually dinged up a Prince Craft boat on location.
And we had to explain that because this was shoot number 2. So we had to explain that everywhere we went from there on.
That was the embarrassing
what happened
part.
Why are those scratches on your boat? Well, you had a crocodile down there.
We made stories up
Muskie
along
was
the
pissed
way.
off there with us one time. And how far, Dean, do you remember how far that shoot was compared to Chaudière? Do you remember how... And I got a thought in my head here. I'll go to it after when we get to the Chaudière thing. Do you remember? Maybe you can look in the calendar whilst we're talking about this, just to see the closeness of it. I have a method to my madness.
Oh, like how far away, like in...
How far after Lumberjack was Chaudière?
Well, we were there on Canada Day at Chaudière.
I'll figure it out. We'll look at it. I'll look at the calendar.
By the way, also, you're going to be watching this episode, and you're going to say to yourself, my God, the cinematography on this show, on this episode, is absolutely breathtaking. And I've always maintained that you can take, an average cameraman and put really good quality fishing scenes in front of him, and at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. But you can take an outstanding award-winning cameraman and put marginal fishing scenes in front of him, and he'll turn it into a Picasso. And I'm not talking about Vova here, because this episode had glimpses of, I think, what's going to be a future award-winning cinematographer here on the Fishing Canada show.
Well,
that's my opinion. I don't know.
Anybody listening, just look up the Picasso paintings and you'll see what they look like. And that's very much the horse shit that's going on over this guy right now, to be honest with you, because they're not the most brilliant artwork. They just sold well for some reason.
I don't know. They looked really good. I had an opportunity, and I don't remember the situation, but Vova entrusted me with a camera.
Because we were going to that little scouting spot.
Oh,
it was up that creek. It was right after that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
In the little...
They were a month apart, by the
jackpot.
way,
Pete.
You'll see.
They're 1 month apart.
But I just looked it up. They were back to back with that boat.
Were they?
So I got to
Oh,
start.
yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So anyways, you'll see some award-winning film work by yours truly in that episode. I made him look good.
If you can make me look good with that stupid little Osmo camera, you can make anybody
And you
look
looked
good, right?
fantastic.
Come on now.
I did look
There
good,
you
didn't
go.
I?
Anyways,
Again.
check out that episode. It is episode 555, North Country Lumberjacks, it's called. Don't miss that one. All right, episode 556, Behemoth Temagami Lake Trout, my favorite episode of the entire season.
Was
Boy,
it? Yeah.
we had some great shows this year.
This is more than the big pike show, eh? For you?
Well, yeah, because there was so much in there. There were so many parts to this. There was so much magic that unfolds in this episode that just was.
Yeah,
was
you know what? There was
mind-boggling.
more of a surprise element in the sense of the size of the fish on this one compared to. You knew at Brabant you were going to get some biggins, right? Here we weren't sure.
a
Right
little
on Temagami, we don't know.
skeptical,
Yeah, we're not 100% sure how big the fish are going to be. We had
Loon
no
Lodge.
idea they were going to be like that. You know what I mean?
Loon Lodge. So we heard about this place, and we had been fishing Temagami on several occasions throughout our 4 decades of shooting.
We had breakfast at Loon Lodge with Jimmy Grayson years ago.
That's right.
Years ago. So.
But we had heard all of a sudden that somebody on that lake had patterned this incredible lake trout adventure.
You want to hear how we heard about that?
Yes, please.
Do you remember Wolf, the cook that was there? Wolf, the guy that was cooking at Loon Lodge.
Yes.
Wolf sent me a message on Instagram that he was working there and you should check out this new guy, Adam. He's on the big lake trout, big walleye, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, let's check him out. That's how we got. That's how it happened. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Hey, thanks,
There you
Wolfie.
go. Anyways, we were a little bit apprehensive, to be honest with you. We fished Temagami, great body of water, fantastic. But the problem with Temagami, it's a big body of water and it fishes like a big body of water. So there is so much to focus on that you can eat up 3, 4, 5, 6 days before you know it. And we were a little skeptical because of that. Mm-hmm. And we've done some outstanding smallmouth bass episodes. In fact, Roland Martin and I did 2 episodes
That was outstanding.
on that lake that were absolutely breathtaking. So we had a bit of history, but never for lake trout.
Let me interrupt. I don't know how big this lake is. Ange and Roland did those shows. We could never find those spots again.
That's right.
Ever. In 30 plus years, we cannot find where they shot. That's how big this lake is.
But the really outstanding part was not so much that it was possible, but the quality of the fish it seemed a little bit stretched in our opinion. But hey, you know what? Like Pete said, he read the message. Sometimes that's how things happen here, by the way. They're not scientific and it's not all calculated, and sometimes it just happens. A message gets to somebody who reads it and says, you know what, there is an opportunity. And that was the case.
We're going to be getting a lot of emails and DMs now.
That's good.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah. Hey, if
Send
it all
them in,
turns
send
out like
them in.
that, woohoo! Thank you.
So I think the highlight of the episode, obviously, when you've got fishing like this, and this was just one of many, when you've got this quality of fishing, you say, well, that's the highlight. But it wasn't. What was the highlight is that this was the first opportunity that we had in the season to truly work out the bugs in some of our new technology on the Princecraft, and in particular live scope, and in particular perspective, and in particular our mounts. We talk about fishfindermounts.com. Well, this was the real first episode that we got to test this product. And oh my God, you have to see the episode to believe it. It changed everything. This episode changed our whole year in terms of how to locate and work with a big fish pattern. And without live scope, without the Garmin units, without fishfindermounts.com, without being able to use the new, well, not so much new for us, the deep water, the blue water transducer, the 62, LVS 62, XR 62, I guess it's called, in perspective mode, and the traditional 34 on the regular mode, without being able to use those in concert, in unison, and if you will, overlap them, this episode would not have happened. And we're hoping that for those of you watching who are maybe starting to step up to this level of technology, it will unlock it for you, completely unlock it.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that was so much fun. I say Ange and I are quite proficient on the forward mode with the live scope right now. With being the old transducer, the 32 or 34, the new one, Live Scope Plus. We're pretty good at that forward viewing, but we've never we don't put on perspective a whole lot, and we know there's a potential for it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you think, it's too shallow for this, and it's not going to work. Well, that's wrong thinking too. Then by that time, you're thinking, okay, let's just get out there and we'll put in the forward view. When we put that big guy on perspective in that deep water, that was the key, because these lake trout were, I don't know if we got anything less than 40 feet. Most were like 60, 70 feet, I think, deep, right? Typical lake trout. And to see these images, like on that perspective mode, to get that bird's eye view of, and there's not a lot of fish. You're thinking, now you're seeing them all. Well, you're seeing them all because there's only 2 of them down there. You know what I mean? On each spot we'd stop at. And then you see it on the perspective mode. You say, okay, I got to turn the transducer, the other transducer that way. There he is over there. Now let's try and catch him. Yeah. So it just was so much, it was so much fun on that deep water aspect of it, because we've done it, like I said, with walleye, with bass, we do it all the time. Pike, we do it all the time like that. But to get to try it out on deep, giant lakers, and they showed up so cool on these. When you start playing around with your settings a little bit, getting your color sequence right and all that it is pretty neat stuff. It makes it quite fun. And again, we cast to a lot of fish that we couldn't catch. We thought we were going to catch them. They wouldn't bite. They wouldn't budge. So we thought, okay, well, let's move on and try for something else. So totally fun, and it's just a learning experience for sure.
We wouldn't have known that Temagami would have had that quality of lake trout if we hadn't.
And we saw the first of the shoot, we saw big ones on there. We said, it looks like a pretty big fish. We didn't realize how big they were. By the end of the shoot, we knew, there's another giant there.
And it helped us interpret what those images were on the screen, right?
Exactly.
That's why I say this really unlocked this whole live scope imagery to us.
And here, I'll give one more plug for fishfindermounts.com. This is might have been the first show where we put on the rotating handle on our Gen 3 mount. And I'll tell you what, if you want to upgrade to, it's hard for me to explain. You'll have to watch the show, but you're going to see that we have, normally on these mounts, these external mounts, you literally have to turn the whole unit around with a single handle, and manually turning it around. Well, now we have this little twist handle. It's like a throttle on a motorcycle or something like that. And you just spin it back and forth, to and fro, and the whole thing turns like that, and it makes such a difference. It is so nice for dialing in the perfect spot to cast, etc. So pretty cool.
Oh, and we didn't. The owner of the operation, he coined the pattern that he had developed, and that he kind of discovered the pattern, and then we took it to the next level with all of this technology. And it's now, he's called it sharpshooting lake trout. Yeah. Sharpshooting, because that's what you're doing. You're looking for individual fish in deep water and figuring out how to make them bite.
And you know what? That's actually, we should mention that Adam guides up there, and he does that. So he could show you all about this whole technique. You know what I mean? If you don't have the equipment, you don't care about ever buying it or whatever, but you still want to see what it's like. Well, you go into Adam's outfitting up there at Loon Lodge, and he will take you out and sharpshoot you from lake trout and walleye too. So he's doing it on big walleye as well.
Once you see this episode, you will want to go. And the best part about it, it's like a 5-hour drive
and
from
you can
the
get
GTA.
The only place in the world you can get a loon burger.
Loon burgers on that episode.
They were so good, eh, Dean?
They were so good.
I mean, they were so
And
good.
you didn't have a real one. You didn't eat the bun.
That's right.
I know.
That's right.
It was what it was.
But it wasn't loons, by the way, folks. It wasn't loons. It was actually cormorants we were eating. No, these are just burgers. They just because it's Loon Lodge, they're so good. But that name Loon Burger is so good. I love it.
Episode 557, the New Brunswick multi-species episode that's coming up this year. Oh boy,
that was a good one. That was a real good one.
Unfortunately, I was there, but had to fly home. I had a personal emergency to tend to. So
it was like the first day in the water, was it?
The first day out.
First or second?
Yeah. So I missed it, but I've seen it. And I got to tell you,
And you were on that water. You had to leave when you were up on the head pond, right?
That's it, yeah.
Macquac Lake or whatever, that gorgeous water, and you get that call, and I could just see it in your eyes.
I was scheduled to do a muskie episode, but the premise is kind of really cool in this episode. Maybe you can set that up.
Yeah, we wanted to go up. We had the intention of 5 hosts, 5 different species. Well, Ange got called away, so he says, okay, you know what? Well, we'll do 4 hosts and 4 species. So it was myself, Dean, Nick, and Steve Nizwicki. all four of us, and we had to, we were trying to figure out who would shoot what and who would shoot what, and ended up I did a smallmouth segment. Steve did a largemouth segment, and that Mackenzie Lake up in the head pond. Dean did a striper segment, and Nick did a sturgeon. What ended up being a short-nosed sturgeon, but there's Atlantic sturgeon and short-nosed sturgeon up there. So in breaking them all, we basically either did it a full day or a partial day of this stuff. So I know with Nick sturgeon fishing, he went out with Pierre
Oliver Blais.
Oliver Blais. Very good. Very good,
Oliver
boys.
Blais.
And such a great guy. A guide out of Minnow Tackle?
Yeah, the Minnow Tackle Shop.
Minnow Tackle Shop up right in...
Great spot.
Yeah, and Pierre is such a good guide, a multi-species guide. He can pretty much catch them all up there, including largemouth too. So
I think it's worth noting at this point, the premise behind the episode was we fished the St. John River in New Brunswick on several occasions for years. And we've always, every time we come back, say, man, I can't believe that they've got that quality of fishing. Like right within the urban centers, in this case, Fredericton.
Yeah, Fredericton.
And so we decided to do this episode because we really wanted to highlight the urban fishing opportunities that we have in this country, and in particular, in this case, in New Brunswick, in Fredericton, because all of these episodes or segments of these episodes were all shot within an hour of...
Oh, God, not even.
I'm saying, yeah.
That drive, the head pond was the farthest drive.
Away. So Half hour. So all within a half hour of downtown Fredericton. Like fishing like you would think you need to go for days, travel for days to get this quality of fishing.
Yeah.
And that was the whole idea behind this.
The sturgeon were literally right in front of the city. We went in the morning I was on the boat with Nick and Pierre. They were done. They got 2 sturgeon in the boat and dropped a bunch of fish or missed a bunch of fish all within a couple hours. You know what I mean? Wow. So like that. And then after that, we said, okay, let's pack it up. Same day, I did the smallmouth thing, went up in the upriver of Fredericton, cracked them off in no time at all. The smallmouth fishery there
some of the best smallmouth fishing on the planet.
It's
in my
unreal.
opinion. Yeah.
There are so many fish. They're not as big as our Ontario fish, but they are getting bigger and bigger every year. Yeah. And trust us when we say this, that St. John River is probably the best Canadian smallmouth number spot, of all. Oh. It's that good. Like there's that many fish in it. Everywhere you go up, the entire river system is full of smallmouth. Then we did Steve up on that top, like I said, up the Mackenzie Lake. We went up there, and that was a real eye opener because it's such a neat body of water. It looks every bit as Ontario-ish, as Quebec-ish, you know what I mean? Like it's one of our little lakes up here. Mm-hmm. And it has all the same weed patterns we have, the same weed types we have, rock piles, everything you could think of for largemouth, it had it all like that. Yeah. So it was a cool little spot to fish. And then Dean's striper segment was kind of neat in that. And we've never done this before. Ange and I have never done this before. We decided to do a night piece with Pierre again. And Dean and Pierre got out there, and they fished a bridge pattern. Basically, the lights off the bridge, et cetera, are attracting these big stripers. And now Dean got a couple of nice ones. Had a big rip on one fish. I don't know if you guys remember that, man. That was so disappointing. I mean, as usual, the big one that gets away.
It straightened out the hooks.
Straightened out the hooks. It was like it looked like if we were in another boat, it looked like he had bottom. But Pierre says, no, that wasn't bottom, boys. They were trolling musky-sized crankbaits, like musky baits, basically. They were trolling them. And another cool thing about that was, and Dean will attest to this, is you're watching your bait on the live scope. You're watching your big lure down there.
So you were shooting
backwards.
Tell us about that, because I think this episode is the first time that we've actually documented that as well.
Yeah, so basically, when you have a fishfindermounts.com mount, it is an external mount that goes on the side of your boat. So let's just say when LiveScope first came out, it was always mounted on the trolling motor. Okay, so if you were wherever the trolling motor points, that's where it points. But if you're trolling, and you had to be trolling with your big motor, you'd have to turn your trolling motor backwards, and you might be able to shoot under your boat. Maybe you might not be able to.
It would get the interference of the motor. Yeah.
So off to the side, basically, we're trolling with the big motor, the Mercury. And we've turned that fish finder mounts not exactly backwards. You turn it to the point where you see your lure. That's where you do it. So it could be a little bit off, because each lure is out off to the side a little bit like that. So essentially you've turned your transducer facing backwards and it is watching your lure. So your whole screen on your live scope, everything is basically shifting and moving and shifting except for your bait. And you can literally, we had it dialed in where you could see the leader. You can see the swivel on the leader. So you see the swivel, and then you'd see this big giant, 12-inch.
Now, is this on the episode?
It's on the episode. It should be. Fantastic. I think Mr. Vova probably put it in there.
I think you were recording the live scope screen. So we have that.
We have it. I saw it. Yes, I saw it this morning. I was looking at all. I told you guys I was watching my live scope stuff on my phone again, all the recordings and all that, and I saw it there. So very
lovely
cool
Countess
watching that.
Walking through. Hello, Countess.
And literally when a fish attacks, because we did this on. At Northwest Territories, you and I did it for the walleye in that little creek. We turned it backwards and we started watching pike come up for our little crankbaits. Yeah. When you see a fish come up and hit your bait when you're trolling, it is so cool. Like they just come up just like a predator. Come up, look at it, and sometimes they take off. And then all of a sudden, wham! They just crack it, and you watch the whole thing.
It's more eye-opening though how many come up and don't do anything.
Don't take it. That's the weirdest thing.
It is crazy how often that happens.
But I think that goes for all of our fishing since we've been using live scope. I know people think, wow, it's an unfair advantage. All you guys are doing is now catching fish after fish because you're using this forward view and it should be outlawed. Like, why can't I? The truth of the matter is, we now know that more fish
won't bite.
Absolutely. Than the ones that will bite. That's what this technology has enabled us to finally figure out, is that even though you're doing all the right things, even though everything is as it should be, most fish will not bite.
Yeah. I mean, you look at even before live scope, or even if you don't run live scope, if you look at pike fishing is a great example. How many follow you up to the boat and then just take off? You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, that fish was never going to bite. And he showed interest, but he took off. I mean, at the same time, in your sight fish, you see a largemouth swimming in the shallows, you throw ahead of him, you're thinking, I'm going to get this guy. See you later. He takes off, doesn't give a shit about your bait. So it happens a lot. Most of the times, I think we're saying 60 to 70% of the fish probably won't bite. So ish anyways. So so that was I think that was it. We didn't get the muskie and that was the last as we talked about early in the show. Muskie we put it on to the end and we said, if we can do a muskie, we will do a muskie, but Anne's had to pull away and we just didn't have time to do it. So
but you will see a muskie segment on this episode that we shot a couple of years back, and we kind of pulled it in just so we could
area.
Same area.
We were going to fish the same area.
Just so we could tell the whole story about these 5 wonderful species of fish that are all available within sight of the city of Fredericton at all times. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So,
cool. It'll be a very interesting episode and one that we've never done like that before. So. Should be good watching.
Episode 558, Lipless Lakers. There you go. Another one that I wasn't on.
Another one. This is the debut episode of Mr. Dean Taylor. So when he takes his full shot at being on camera by himself, sort of thing like that. So,
no safety net.
No safety net.
Wired tether. Nothing. On his own.
He had a critic in the boat in the name of Pete Bowman that if anything went wrong, he was going to give him shit. But other than that, so he was. Dean did a great job. We had Obabika Lake Obabika is called actually. Went to Lake Obabika Lodge on this one, and this was intended for 2 shoots. We were going to get another show on. We'll talk about later. But Dean took on the lake trout segment of it, and Dean's a good lake trout fisherman to begin with. He's got a lot more experience probably than even you and I on these more southern Ontario lakes. You and I are good. We got experience way up north, but Dean does a lot of it on this. On these lakes, just a bit north of here and all that. So
But never like this. This was new for me. So just for context, so this episode was filmed, I think, a week after the Temagami show.
Right.
And Lake Obabika is actually technically attached to Temagami.
Yeah. So it's in the northwest corner of it.
Yeah.
Basically.
So it's kind of the same lake trout population. And we had talked to Adam at Loon, who was telling us, I've been in there. They're pretty good. It's not quite Temagami, but there's some big ones in there.
Can you access that lake from Temagami?
In the winter, apparently.
Yeah. Okay, but there is no connection waterway
there might be a
wise?
connection, but you can't do it. I don't think you can
not
get
for a
through.
boat.
Not for a boat.
Have you seen us go through shallow, narrow?
Might be able to do it, yeah.
Adam's fished it, but only in the wintertime. And he told
Okay.
us, he said,
the
guys, the
numbers-
numbers are ridiculous in there. He said,
Yeah.
there's a lot of fish. So.
But the numbers are ridiculous because it was closed for 20 years, I think.
Yep.
So they put like a moratorium on it because it was like all the lake trout were gone pretty much.
Wow.
So it's been recovering. I think they opened it again in 2020. So we were the first ones to go in and really explore, especially the deep water ones. I think people probably take advantage of them in the spring.
Yeah.
But this deep water stuff was brand new. And it was new to me because I fly fish for lake trout a lot out west, but that is like totally different from this. And then I've done the Lake Ontario trolling stuff with downriggers and planer boards. And
You ice fish them though, right? You do.
I ice fish them a lot, and that's why I was excited about this.
Yeah,
because
it's similar.
I was in the boat on Temagami with you guys. So for those who don't know, we do have multiple people in the boat. I help out, camera assist, I guess, and I write my articles and do this like the scripting and stuff when we're out there. So I was watching Ange and Pete on Temagami, and it was like ice fishing. Like it looks like what you're doing through the ice, like you're in deep water. Because you're limited on the ice, you're looking for like individual marks. You're just kind of toying with them, watching them kind of react to the bait and then changing your approach. So I was really excited to try it on...
Swearing at them. You missed that part. Swearing at
that,
them when they don't get...
If we could put out a behind the scenes, that happened a lot. I think there's going to be a compilation of this episode because I missed like 20...
Oh, that was funny.
Oh my God.
It was funny.
Nonstop.
Another thing, Dean, before you go on, Dean,
Yeah.
another thing Dean does, or whoever's not shooting in these situations, is we record the live scope screens, the Garmin screens, right? And that's a big thing because Dean's sitting there watching all this going on as in the Temagami show that Ange and I are doing. He's learning, he's absorbing everything that these fish are doing, not doing, and looking at the screen and saying, "Oh, I like this, maybe I can change that." So that's another thing that the person that they on their phone, the Captain active Captain app.
That's new, right? This whole recording on your phone?
No, it's not new. No. We've had it with it's new to the EchoMap series.
To the EchoMap series,
yeah.
yes.
So there's a new EchoMap 2 series, but the
didn't
GPS map we could do it.
But we used to plug into that.
No,
right?
you could do it on your
You
phone.
could do it on
back,
your phone
yeah,
too?
back in the day. I remember doing it on the St. John River again, but way back, and that musky thing I did up there. So, but now you can do it with certain EchoMap units, and it's so cool because you're watching the screen and you're making sure you get it recorded, so you're really studying everything like that. So that's another duty that Dean was doing at Temagami that helped here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but the story kind of, I mean, other than me getting to host, because technically, like, from a behind-the-scenes perspective, this wasn't my first time on camera, but it was my first time alone. But Ange and I actually got to film something at the Northwest Territories.
It was magic.
A fly fishing thing, and that kind of broke the ice for me. I hope people get to see it eventually.
Yeah.
But I got a big pike on there with Ange, and he kind of introduced me as being able to host. But that kind of broke the ice for me as being like, okay, I think I can do this.
Can I
Yeah.
I have to jump in. I just can't. I'm beside myself. I had to jump in. So Dean and I are fishing this little backwater on the Mackenzie River, and I said, "Come on, Dean, let's you and I do an episode here." Well, I just wanted to see how he would react to me and the camera and all that stuff, and the fishing was phenomenal. We knew Pete and I had been in there already a couple days earlier. The fishing was just phenomenal. There was walleye and pike like everywhere, but there was only certain areas that held big fish, and so I had caught about 3 or 4 beautiful walleye, and Dean, he's using a fly. I'm using like the good stuff, right? He's using a fly, trying to coax them in. He had maybe caught 1 or 2 smaller fish, and so I said to him, "Cast your fly over there." And now Pete and I had fished over there the day before, right? And over there, where I said, "Go cast a fly over there," because all we had caught there were little tiny pike. The first time we had seen small pike in the whole Mackenzie River were right in this one the spot that he could just get his fly to. And I said, "There's some big fish in there, man. You should cast over there." So now I'm busy catching these big walleye on this side. I got Dean out of my way now with that damn fly rod. And all of a sudden he says, "Whoa, I got one." And I looked around at his rod. I said, "Oh,
Buckled.
God."
That's awesome.
And then go ahead and finish that one off.
Yeah, so it ended up being, so we were kind of framing the whole thing as like a contest. And I had said when we started that I think numbers wise, Ange would have me for sure, just because I'm out of the water all the time trying to cast. But I said size wise, I think this can be competitive. And then it ended up being the biggest one. Like we were only
huge.
We were out there for half an hour. It was not.
Yeah, you guys killed them.
And
in a half hour.
I was under gun because I thought if I was going to get a big one, it might be like a walleye 25 inches. So I think I had like 12-pound line with like an 8-pound leader. Like I was not.
Oh my
prepared.
God!
And it ended up being a
Undergunned.
giant pike.
Oh, you did not have a steel leader or
No.
wire leader at all?
No,
Oh,
and we landed the damn thing.
I know you landed it. Okay.
Yeah. So that kind of broke the ice for me with this Obabika thing, but
The fishing gods were paying me back for fibbing,
Yeah.
to you.
yeah.
Yeah. True.
Great episode.
Let me
and-
say one more thing on that one. This was your normal lake trout fishing anglers with artificials or tube jigs or white swim baits, blah, blah, blah. Dean did this all with a Yozuri lipless crankbait, with a rattle bait. All of it. He got every one of his fish with a Yozuri. I think it's a one knock. Was that Dean? Is it the one knock?
The one knock.
Is that the one that looks like the old rattle traps?
Yeah.
It's kind of
kinda like
it's
that.
similar, but it's just a perfect. We did some modifications. You'll see that on the TV show what we did to it, and just because it's deep water, and he reeled them all on that bait. That bait was fire. It was money.
That thing when you're jigging that thing, it's got a real erratic movement.
Oh, it's
right?
nice.
Yeah.
Hear it from the
Loud.
top of the water.
Yeah.
And you can see that bait on your sonar.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Clearly, yeah.
Yep. So
There you go. Another one that I missed. Oh boy. Next episode, 559 Nordic Point Adventure. Now this one, Pete and I were out experimenting on trying to figure out how to fish this big windswept point that we had found the day before, while we sent the boys out to entertain some guests, right?
Yeah. So we had Andrew, Scott, Mike, and Brian, who people would remember from Port Cunnington, the episode we shot, the golf and fishing episode the year before.
Yep.
Ange and Pete were kind of tied up with their episode because the wind was crazy and they had to travel all over to get their show done. So Steve and I kind of entertained these guys in a pontoon boat for a Princecraft pontoon boat for a couple of days. So we guided them. We did a shore lunch with pike. They'd never had pike. So that's half the show. And it was way harder than it sounded, by the way. Like
you guys were panicking about getting them shore lunch.
The winds that Ange and Pete had to deal with, we had to deal with in a pontoon boat.
Yeah.
So we were really limited on where we could go. All the good water that you'd want to be in, we just couldn't do it. We had so many people in the boat, so your lines are all over. We ended up getting it done. You'll see in the show how. And then on the last day we were there, Steve and I got to fly into a lake called Sup Lake. We had options, like we got told about another lake that had walleye in it, but it was all, like 18-inch walleye. We were told that Sup Lake is really hard, but there are big ones in it if you can find them. So we opted for that one. We never caught anything huge, but we got the biggest one of the trip for us was pretty nice. But again, the wind was a factor the whole time. Like we were really limited. We were in, I think, like a 14-foot tin boat in this little back lake and just getting pushed all over the place. We couldn't really do what we wanted, but it was a lot of fun.
I was going to say, and that Sup Lake that we talked about Nordic Point Lodge, driving to, and all these different opportunities. They also have flyout opportunities from the lodge.
Yes.
If you want, you can book one of these smaller lakes, and Will and the folks there have so much in the realm of fishing opportunities there. It's crazy.
I think it's probably it's an embarrassment of riches in terms of fishing opportunities. As opposed to most lodges that we spend time in where they're great, but they're one-dimensional. I think Nordic Point has the opportunity to pretty much fit everybody's needs in terms of the experience because of the fact that you can literally move around every day to a different body of water, different species, or same species, but in different scenarios. It's magic.
I think Will's open to finding new stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's another lake I can add to the list. You know what I mean? That's a big thing right there. So, yeah great place.
That's episode 559, Nordic Point Adventure. More of a laid-back episode, that one. don't think it
Yeah.
was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then we have Bay of Fundy stripers.
Yeah, again, you were still away for this.
Still
So
away,
we did a big 3-leg shoot on this. We did New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, then back to New Brunswick, and this was the Nova Scotia portion of the trip. And that Nick and I, the mighty Nicky V, got to go fishing for striped bass on the Minas Basin, which is the end of the Bay of Fundy, basically, is what it's called, the Minas Basin. And Nick has been here before. He shot with you, Ange, a couple of years before that, or whatever. And so we were with Bass Barn Charters again. Easy up, easy down, Greg Bellevaux. What a character.
Bow to the bass, Peter. Bow to the bass.
Bow to the bass, Nick. He is quite a character, this guy. I'll tell you what, if you ever want a fishing guide that's going to keep you entertained for the day, Greg Bellevaux is the guy that do it, and he knows his stuff really well, sort of like that. So Nick and I got on. Yeah, Nick, you get the microphone. Go ahead and tell everybody about that
Well, we
trip.
did the podcast down there too, which was the big recap. If you missed that episode, you should go watch it. And no, that was a really cool shoot because Grandpa, we did that 5 years ago,
right?
From then, and I actually had the same jacket. You gave me a jacket down there. I had that same coat underneath that coat there. Just hilarious.
How do you remember that?
It because it was a whole thing where I got this jacket and he wanted it back and I said no, and then I just have ended up with it ever since.
Yeah, there's something new, Ange.
And yeah, no, that was one hell of a shoot. Like, 'cause that was, other than the one segment we did in BC a few years ago, Pete, that was our only me and you.
Yeah,
time.
that's right. We did the little lake trout
the
piece.
small
there.
lake trout.
Yeah.
But that was fun. Like, I mean, it started and continued with the same theme of it was a little rough out there.
Yeah.
The water was rough.
What else was new?
Vova had a moment, and the first foot I took in the boat on the first day, I almost dislocated my thumb.
Oh yeah, that's right too. Yeah.
But I couldn't really hold. So that fish that you see on screen, if you're on YouTube, I'm really struggling to hold that fish because I'm holding it with a thumb that is like half dislocated. The other hand, because I had dropped it a few times, that thing's probably got brain damage now. I dropped it, and then I went in with my other hand, and I somehow got bit by a fish with no teeth. And I saw the scar on my hand from this cut that it made on my, and I don't know how it.
There's a whole story to that
when
one.
When they clamp down on you, man, they are just unbelievable.
Like, I get how it can rip apart that herring. And
that day was the only flat water that we were seeing behind us there. That was the only day that it was nice. The rest of them were, well, we got to go out 2 days. This is what we fished, 2 days. One like this and one that was
like just
doable, and the rest it would be Dean and I and Steve and Joe Anthony that went out and pre-fishing and trying to get new spots with Greg. That's what we were doing because and Nick sometimes would come out with us too, but Volvo couldn't come out. It was just it was the Bay of Fundy. It's the ocean, right? Waves are tripping in here like that. So we didn't get any giants. Nick, that was the biggest fish.
That was the biggest one. That was sub 35.
It was in that area, something like that.
It was a
the
great
other thing
fight,
the other thing we got were those skates. Remember those stupid skates?
The pliers.
My pliers thing that.
My pliers.
I
I
actually
believe.
found a pair that are identical to yours in my nightstand at home, which means I probably took
I've already
them
got
from
it.
here one
I've
day.
already got them replaced, boys. I got a better pair in there right now, and they're more visible to us now too. So, and then the other thing was dogfish. Those little are they sand sharks?
Sand sharks. Yeah.
They were cool though.
They were cool.
They look cool.
For somebody to say that's somebody that has never caught sand sharks before. As Ange and I have caught hundreds of them probably, they're not so cool anymore. They're a pain. They get it. Greg hates them. I mean, he absolutely hates them. He is the master at getting off skates and off the hook. Skates and shark because they both of them, the skates try and get you with their tail and the sand sharks try and get you with the tail. They have spikes in their tail too.
They got two. They got one on their dorsal and one on their tail.
Yeah, and they're nasty. And when they get you, apparently they are nasty. Like it infects you. You know what I mean?
So it's got a toxin in it.
Yeah,
it's a neurovenom.
So, but it was a fun shoot. I mean, to get Nicky out there, my whole intent on that was because it's a great way when you're fishing with a guide in a situation like that with a multi-rod setup, like trolling the Great Lakes or in this right here. You can designate who catches the fish.
Sure.
Right? So I say, Nick, if that rod is going, boom, there's a big fish, you're taking it like that. So my whole goal was to get Nicky a big one, and he got a pretty good one out of it like that. So it was kind of nice to have him experience that, nice. A good-sized fish like that, and have fun, and easy up, easy down, and bow to the bass.
Easy up, easy down there, bow to the bass down there, bow to the bass.
World's largest tides are featured in this episode.
Yeah, they were 40-something feet than when we were there at that time. So 40 plus. Think about that, folks. The water is shallower or deeper by 40 plus plus feet. I think it's 44 feet that trip. So
the fact Greg gave us, more water moves through there than all the lakes and rivers in the nation or the North America
it's
combined.
Billions or hundreds of billions of gallons or billion. I don't know.
Billions of gallons rush in, rush out. Twice a day, every day.
It's unreal.
Since the dawn of time.
It's unreal.
It is very crazy to see.
Great whites there too. There's an opportunity there to.
There's none that whole week. Of course, we're there. That's the only week they had no sightings whatsoever. Because normally there's at least one sighting. Because there's other boats that are out there as well, not just Greg, and they're all either seeing the great whites or they're attacking their stripers. Or it's an ongoing thing. But we never saw any of that.
And we know it's true because Greg's got video of it.
Oh yeah.
It's not like these boys just making it up.
Yeah.
Like there's recorded documentation of these sharks coming
great
right
whites.
To the boat.
Episode 561, Nipissing to the French.
Yeah.
From Nipissing to the French.
So we finally got back to our old, one of our favorite places, Chaudière Lodge, right? We haven't shot there in,
Did you say Chaudière?
Chaudière Lodge.
Okay,
yeah.
Jimmy.
There's a bunch of bullshit.
Thank you. Chaudière Lodge. Chaudière. That's the way you would say that.
Chaudière.
Chaudière. And on the French rivers, we've shot many. Ange and I have shot many shows there, and in the past, Jimmy Grayson will vouch for that.
Oh yeah.
And this is so Steve sold the lodge, and this is the first time that Steve got to go back to the lodge as a guest, and not as an owner. So it's a big, that was a big deal like that. So we started the episode out going for smallmouth out in Lake Nipissing. So we got a pretty good run. We ran from Chaudière Lodge all the way through the mouth of the French River, all the way across to the other side of Nipissing. So that's a pretty good run. I mean, you remember that run probably, right?
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't very good. We got over there, it was just small fish. We worked really hard, and everything was right as far as calendar period, as far as blah, blah, blah. But as fishing goes, as you and I know, they spawned a week earlier than they anticipated. They did whatever and like that. And it was like we got some fish, but not very many.
Part of the allure that fishing gives us, right?
So then we got our arses in gear. We said, okay, now we got to go get some fish somewhere else. So we worked our way back. Still on Lake Nipissing. Did okay. Got a couple of big old sheephead that'll actually be up on camera, because one is. There was a very funny moment, and I won't say what it is. You have to watch the show to see that. Then we said, okay, you know what? Let's fish the river for largemouth, and we started fishing the river in the back bays and all that, Wigwam, all those places for largemouth, and we ended up getting a pretty good show out of that. So we got lots of fish, tons of fish, and just had to adapt. And Stevie was living the life of a lodge guest instead of a lodge owner. So
that must have been interesting for him.
Yeah. Him sitting in that dining room, I bet you it felt weird for him, right? Because we're sitting there, he's sitting with us having a beer and eating our supper. You know what I mean? He's like, wow, this is different. So very cool.
Episode 652, back to Obabika. Smallmouth this time. So Dean, I was there, and we all decided, I'm not going to shoot, boys. Dean's going to take on the lake trout, and Steve's going to take on the smallmouth, because the smallmouth fishery is that's what it's known for more than anything in Obabika. Mm-hmm. And again, did Steve shoot after Dean, or was it before?
So what it was, so we started with Steve because we thought, okay, the smallmouth are going to be easy. We'll get them out of the way. Then the lake trout are going to be hard.
Yeah.
But we did like shallow water stuff. Like we were fishing a sandbar. We were fishing ledges.
The lake is if you look on the map, it's like a snowman, 3 parts: small, bigger, and the lodge is in the sort of the smaller, shallower part like that. So we were trying to pick off Stevie's smallmouth in those areas like that. So you go ahead and decide. I just wanted to.
So we did the first 2 days, I think, with Steve, and we got tons of smallmouth. Like, you're still catching them every cast, but nothing huge and nothing like super unique, because we wanted to tell a story about the area too, not just do like a typical smallmouth episode. So we were satisfied with the numbers, but not satisfied quite with the story yet. So we switched to me for the lake trout stuff, because we figured we need to get something on camera for me. And my first drop out in 80 feet of water, I caught a smallmouth, like a big smallmouth, like bigger than the ones that Steve had been catching the last couple of days.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So we kind of made note, and it continued. Like there were smallmouth everywhere.
On that rattle bait, by the way.
It was crazy.
On that same old rattle bait, yeah.
But we were seeing small. So like if you could get your bait down below the smallmouth before they hit it, you'd catch a laker. But it was hard to get past the smallmouth. So we basically switched after that and gave the boat back to Steve. and he did a bunch of stuff out way in the open.
It was weird because it's not like you're picturing. I know what I'm picturing what Dean's saying, but they weren't everywhere. But where they were, you had a hard time getting your bait through them, right? But the weirdest part of that whole
fish down at the bottom, or are they in the middle?
No, they're from 30 feet and up, and up to the surface in 80 feet of water. Like, I mean, your foot
That's
down.
so cool.
So there was a couple of times, and this is where we really got onto the pattern, is that either it was Dean or Steve. I can't remember which one. Maybe Dean might be able to tell us. But all of a sudden, I'm looking over the side of the boat because we see these smallmouth. We caught a couple of smallmouth, and I'm saying, holy shit, there's 2 smallmouth right there off the back corner of our boat. Like, I mean, off the boat. 2 of them swimming around, like in clean water, 80 to 90 feet of water, and they're right beside our boat sitting there. I said, boys, there's smallies right here. What's going on here? This is getting kind of weird, isn't it, like that? And I think Stevie dropped a rattle bait like that, or he got one like that, right beside the boat, and saying, what the hell is going on here?
Wow.
So that's when we started really working on and you could see it, like Dean said, you could see it on your live scope. Those shallow fish, up in that column, the top column, even though they look the same-ish size as the lake trout, not quite, they were all smallmouth, and if they were down deep, they were all lake trout, and it was so cool. And Stevie just picked them apart, And again, not all of them bit. A lot of them wouldn't commit. A lot of them did that follow. We found that they followed right to the boat. They just, you've seen that so many times, but in this open water, it was weird because they did go under the boat too, but a lot of them stayed right beside the boat, 2 or 3, like 3 to 4 pounders, like big ones, nice smallies, just hanging out beside the boat, and then they'd swim away. Sometimes you cast at them and they're swimming away, you might catch one. Stevie got a few of them like that too, but it was just such a unique fishery. Oh, it was so cool.
Now, I know it's marked here, but did he do a canoe trip back?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So we met up with a guy named Alex Matthias, who is like an Ojibwe cultural. He does like cultural tours, and I guess the Obabika area. So it's all protected by a provincial park now. But they have a spirit lake. They have something called the Three Sisters, which is like 3 different trees that are growing out of the same like base. So Steve did a big tour and talked to him about like the significance of the area. There were a bunch of like what do they call it? Pictographs.
Yeah.
Pictographs.
They had them all over the
on
rock
the shoreline,
walls.
along the shoreline.
So we went and did a tour of that and kind of learned about like the historic component of the area as well.
I love that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And we shot it all too. So
I'm gonna have to definitely mark that to episode 652.
You'd love that lake. You would have fun on that lake. It would be you'd enjoy that one.
And then we got episode 653. Of course, it's called the PanAm Black Bass Championship. We did 2 episodes there. In a nutshell, obviously the episodes, the climax of the episodes has already gone public because they were shot this in 2024, and we're airing it in 2025. But this is where the Americans, the Canadians, the Mexican team, team from China, anyways, it's a championship that's been going on for a few years, and they have teams from all over North America, and they compete each year on a series of tournaments in different countries in different parts of North America, and they compete for the gold medal. And this is our coverage of that event. The last 2 episodes that will air this year are the 2-part championship. The PanAm Black Bass Championship, for us personally, for Pete and I, it was a great opportunity to mingle with some people that from the past that we hadn't seen for a while, some pros, some world-class champions. For me, it was just a treat to be able to talk to the Team Canada, and in particular the Team Canada captain, Bob Azumi, prior to the event. Chuy Morales, most of you have no idea who that is, but I stumbled onto him. He's the team manager for Team Mexico. He is a world-class bass champion, and he single-handedly put largemouth bass on the map in the country of Mexico, much like Roland Martin would have done in the U.S. back in his day too. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of starstruck when I stumbled into him. I had no idea that he was going to be at that event.
Yeah.
So that
Pat
was a special
Pat Roach is there.
Pat
Randy.
Roach, Randy from Trailer Park Boys.
Got to meet him, a great guy.
Just another wonderful experience. We had several moments there that just were like, whoa. Scott Martin, Roland's son, He is the captain of the Team US. And along the way, we got for a change, we got to sit back in our Princecraft, and we had a front row seat watching all of these world-class bass anglers
that was
do
a nice
their
little
thing,
change.
and holy cow.
It was cool. We got some footage of Scott Martin we talked about before. We got a 20-minute, we'll have to pare it down, obviously, it's a segment of him fighting a fish that is like world-class. You won't believe the outcome of that. It's so cool. So we got so much stuff from there.
First time that the PanAm Black Bass Championship made it to national television, so that's another first. But more importantly, you'll get up close and personal with some of the greatest competitors on the planet, including our very own Gussie, the first Canadian to ever win the Bassmaster Classic.
Correctamundo. Cooper Gallant,
his partner, young up-and-coming super stick as well. 2 episodes you do not want to miss. They're episodes, the 2 last episodes of the new season.
Yes, sir.
Whew, we made it through. This now officially is the longest podcast that we have ever produced.
Holy shit, bud.
I know.
Is that thing for real?
No, we did 3 hours once.
With Reno.
With Reno, and we have him coming up.
I was going to say, speaking of Reno, is he
boy.
not coming in next week?
This is just a warm-up.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
J&B Cycle and Marine, Ontario's largest Princecraft Mercury dealer. They are presenting a wonderful contest that is ongoing right now. And I need you folks to all support him, them, and the contest. Go to jbcycle.com to get...
So right now, we just, if you look on the website, we would have announced the Mercury winner at this point. Okay. And we are about to launch a pretty exciting one. I don't know if we could say it, but it's one of the newer Mercury products that is getting a lot of buzz, and we're going to have a couple of them up. So
nice.
Keep an eye out.
And
I think I know what you're talking about.
I think is that also from J&B Cycle
That's
Marine?
from J&B Cycle, yeah.
They are Canada's largest Princecraft dealer, in case we haven't, or Ontario's, which I'm going to assume Canada's. I could be wrong for you other provinces.
Right.
Don't get mad at me. I just assumed. They have outboard motors, fully equipped boats, both fishing and pleasure crafts. They are also, and it's not mentioned in here, but I'd like to add it in here. They are also the people who brought together this wonderful notion that folks that have cottages can lease fully equipped boats for their cottage, where they drop them off in the spring and they pick them up in the fall and take all those worries away. And next year they'll bring you a brand new boat motor package that you choose, by the way. It's not one that
come on now
sitting on the shelf.
Pretty damn cool, eh? I'd say.
I like those folks at J&B Cycle and Marine. And you should too, by the way.
Yes, sir.
All right. What else have we got? We're done?
We got a bonus code.
Thank you,
We
Dean.
do have one active contest out right now.
We have an active contest right now. And is that for the
Live
Garmin?
Scope Plus Ice Kit.
I'm telling you right now. And it's an ice kit, but remember, you can use that in open water kit too. Okay? Just remember.
That's a Garmin Live Scope Plus Ice Bundle. And if you put in the special code, you can get 10 free entries into the contest.
Come on now.
Special code is the word preview, all uppercase, preview, Preview, preview. Take that, go to the contest on fishingcanada.com, and in the special code section, put that up there. You will get 10 free entries automatically.
For that.
There it is there for that.
Wonderful prize.
Come on
Wonderful.
now.
All right, we got to get out of here. I'm burned out.
Mr. Nick has a request.
Oh, Nick has a
Oh,
request.
Mr. Nick has a request. Okay, here
What
we
do you
go.
got, buddy?
Here we go now.
This is the New Year's.
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
So
This is the New
I
Year.
figured to start the new year, I got two new things for you to show off to our fine.
Come on,
fans.
where'd you go? Let me
on
see.
now.
Let me see. We
Where's
haven't even
he-
seen these.
Where's he come up with these? Oh my God, I heard
Wow.
about I heard about this.
Wow, that's taken like the everything going on there.
The new toque. Look at that
Nice,
baby.
nice.
But the folks at Campus
From
Crew
this
came
logo.
up with a Fishing Canada cap. uniquely to the Fish in Canada show with all of our colors. It's got all of the amenities that are best-selling
It might be the most
caps.
comfortable hat we sell, by the way. I'm wearing it right now.
It is.
Hey,
It
how'd
is
you get one?
ridiculous.
You got.
Because I'm good like that.
He gets one before we do. Don't fit over them headphones, Jimmy. Yeah, that's a slick looking hat.
Yeah, it's the trucker style, but it's got the
Flex fit?
flex kit, and oh my God, it's just beautiful. And it's
Wow.
there now. It's up on the site now.
Snapback? Is that a snapback? Yep, snapback. Beautiful. Oh, that's a
That
sweet looking hat.
And the new toque.
The new toque.
Yeah, which
Le
is
toque.
a full head-on toque.
That'll
with
keep your
the
ears
fish-
warm.
Oh boy.
You can even put it over top of that guy right there if you want it.
Oh,
Put it right over
baby.
top, and you get everything. You get the peak there, you got the sun there, and that and get your ears met, and beautiful thing. Thank you very much for coming out. Buy a couple of them. What the hell?
Speaking of which, take care, folks. On behalf of the entire crew here, Vova, great season. Nick, Dean.
Come on now.
He's Pete. I'm Ange. Talk to you next time, folks. Take care. This episode of Outdoor Journal Radio has been brought to you in part by the Invasive Species Centre, protecting Canada's land and water from invasive species. Freedom Cruise Canada, rent the boat, own the memories. J&B Cycle and Marine, your home for all things power sports, boats, and equipment. And Sail, the ultimate destination for your outdoor adventures.